Welcome to the second roundtable of the PGR featuring the top 50 Smash Ultimate players in the entire world. My name is Suar from PG Stats, and tonight we have a really special show prepared for you. We're going to have SamuraiPanda, CEO of Panda Global, join us here in a moment, but first, a quick primer as to what's going on, who's who, and also what exactly is the PGRU. The Panda Global rankings, as I'm sure you've been following, are the top 50 rated Smashers in the entire world, according to results, head-to-head placements that we've gathered as PG Stats. Now, Smashcenter is the platform you're viewing this on, and usually it's hosted by myself and Coney, but tonight we're going to have a special guest, and we're going to break down this 40 through 31. As a quick aside, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that we're going to hold a live Q&A at the end, so be sure to @Panda Global so that you can get your shot to have your question featured, questions on the algorithm, questions on production, presentation, maybe even next season. Go ahead and get those questions in so that we can do our best to answer them and satisfy your curiosity. But for now, one more thing I wanted to mention is the fact that this PGR boasted a very impressive amount of events. Many people have been talking about Genesis, Smash and Splash, even some of the majors occurring internationally like Umabura Japan Major and even Get on My Level 2019. For those who are unaware, there were many tournaments that featured the S tier classification. And without getting too much into it, we have linked on our Twitter account the different breakdowns of what those mean. We have S tier, A tier, B tier, and C tiers. And this season alone featured a staggering 84 events. Of those, we had, 5 that were S tier, 6 that were A tier, 9 that were B tier, and the rest were all C tiers. The breakdowns of those are all linked on the PG Stats TTS document. If you haven't seen it, we'll link it after the show. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get ready to bring on our special guest of the night. We've had a lot of discussion going on about the rankings, and Mr. SamuraiPanda has a lot to offer. So please join me in welcoming Mr. SamuraiPanda. He's going to go ahead and break things down with us here in a second after he is now in frame. Alan, for everybody who doesn't know you, how's everything? How's it going?
So actually that's Doctor.
Doctor, sorry.
Yeah, actually it's going well. I was running a little bit late, so I'm glad I could make it. Coney is, I say out sick because the internet's down and that will make anyone sick. But glad I could be here. I was cutting it close. My last patient took a while. So
yeah.
4 people to hold her down. Anyways. So I'm really excited, honestly, about this PGR. I know a lot of work went to the PGRU, and there's a lot of difficulty in understanding how the algorithm goes, which is understandable because it is complicated. So hopefully, this overview will help people understand a little bit better about how you and TAS develop this, and what is going on behind the scenes, and obviously to take a look at these amazing players that actually made it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a celebration, and we're always here to bring the best players to be highlighted for not only the community, but for also outsiders as well. Appreciate the recognition of the work that went into it, but again, we do it all for the community, and if we did it at any less of a quality bar, then, it wouldn't look the way it does. But before we get into the actual 40-31, I was talking earlier about the different tournaments that occurred this season of the S tier, A tier qualification. Off the top of your head, Alan, do you remember any of the big tournaments in the S tier category that really stood out to you?
For sure, Genesis. I think that was probably the S tier tournament. Correct me if I'm mistaken, in terms of just top player representation. Everyone was there. Yeah, that was the first true major of Ultimate's existence, so it makes sense. CEO, I don't necessarily know if it hit the S tier, but it was I think weighted very heavily in terms of top player representation. And I know Momocon was an S tier as well, although it was sort of an iffy S tier, which is its own sort of category. Outside of that, I can't recall. What else was the S tier? There was like 1 or 2 more, wasn't there?
So CEO, I'm glad you brought it up, was the highest rated A tier. We also had Albion 4, which was a European event that made it to A tier as well, which is big for Europe. Umabura Japan Major made it to S tier, which is the first of its kind in Japan.
That was in Golden Week. I remember that.
Exactly. But we had Smash and Splash 5 as the second rated S tier. And then the lowest rated S tier was Frostbite.
Okay, so now to clarify for people listening at home, we say S tier, A tier. Okay, this was a a naming system that we gave to it, but the cutoff for that is fairly arbitrary. It doesn't matter if your tournament is an S tier or an A tier. A low S tier and a high A tier roughly have the same number of points. And you can see this on the TTS. It's all published, and you can see it as it's developing and as it's updated. So nothing's hidden about that. And so even though, you have, for example, Momocon was an S tier. Oh, beautiful. There it is. Momocon was an S tier. The difference between Momocon and Genesis was huge.
Staggering. Almost doubled.
This dramatically affects how in the algorithm it is calculated in terms of wins, placings, and everything. So just because you see someone does really well at one S tier doesn't equate to their placing with another S tier. So I just wanted to clarify that for people at home.
Yeah, Practical Test has made fun of people at large saying that it's almost like, the tiers don't matter, the labels don't matter themselves. And it's not necessarily that they don't matter, but calling something an S tier is just our way to sort of give language to something that's, hey, it's rated very highly. As you can see, the first season, we had things strictly by general entrant count in the past, and like how we're going to resume in season 2. PGR top player concentration were the values that gave most of their tournaments, especially in the 2GGC era, their values. We always took the highest score between general entrant count and PGR players. Sometimes you have situations where a couple PGR players go, maybe 4 or 5, but there's 600-700 people that also made it to the event. And that's, of course, going to qualify as a B tier, as opposed to just a C tier.
So that's a good thing, and I would like to clarify this as well. So something you guys have to understand, this is year 3, 4?
It's the 7th actual published PGR.
So this is the 7th PGR that we've done. The PGR algorithm and TTS that were developed for Smash 4 were heavily dependent on people who were ranked prior. In terms of the way that sort of the algorithm is designed, sort of daisy chaining who beat who at what. And a big deal, and exactly as you were alluding to, the TTS for the next season is changing back to the way it was before. Everything we've been refining for many years, or you guys have been refining for many years now, has been dependent on the previous rankings. So, another thing people have to keep in mind is the very first PGR for a game doesn't have all of those elements. It's way harder to rank tournaments, way harder to rank players even, because we don't have those existing stats. So the first PGR makes everything much easier, and I don't want to say more accurate, but make a lot of more natural sense, I think, for how people look at it in the future. And correct me if I'm mistaken with this, Suar.
Well, it's almost like taking a temperature, and from there we can really assess things. And now that everyone's getting ranked, and now that events can cater towards the marketing as well, because we do know that people headline with PGR players being at their tournaments, back in the day when it's we got Larry, we got Void, we got Mr. R, we got Anti coming. They were pretty much historic top 10 players. That was a huge boon for events. We couldn't assume that in this game they would all do as well as we'd hope they would. I mean, we're going to see here in today's 31 through 40, we had 2 individuals that were historically regarded as top 10. And in the all-time top 100, they were basically right there at the top. Now that everything's set and we pretty much have these scales ready for next season, and next season's already pretty much started, we never catch a break, no off season, no anything. You're going to see some tournaments hit S tier, hit A tier, because maybe you have Dark Wizzy start attending that tournament, or you have in region, Tri-State has a lot of concentration. We'll talk about that too. SoCal Bias used to be the big meme because of all the 2GGC events. Now it might be a Tri-State thing. Who knows? We'll see. But all that and more, we're going to talk about that tonight. Any surprises before we get started in this 40 to 31, Alan, that you saw that really made you sit up back in your chair?
I think quite a few.
Okay.
But, when we go over them one by one, I think that's a good time to say this is a surprising one, because a couple of them are surprising in their own right. For their own reasons. And it's complicated for why I found them surprising. But yeah, when I first saw the list, I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool for a couple of these players, and I'm surprised.
Yeah,
so.
And unless I'm not remembering correctly, this PGR also features 3 patches as well as 2 characters being released. One character being half released with Piranha Plant. But Joker came out. And, the next season, I mean, since it's now, we're going to see Hero and Banjo. And then the 5th character, depending, might be in 2020. But Just something to keep in mind, because it's always something that is interesting to note, like when a patch comes out and who, particularly this season, who was really strong in the beginning and then all of a sudden a little questionable, or who started weak and then finished strong. So
yeah,
taking a look at it, shout outs once more to our editor from Japan. We had Cud make all of these. We had them posted on YouTube. It's on Red Bull. The articles are all there. Dom, Popey, and Mayday wrote the articles, and I edited them as best I could. But at 40th here, we had the longtime favorite, Japanese sensation of multiple characters. When did you first hear of Abadango?
I first heard of Abadango, oh my god, in the Brawl days. Abadango was a famous Mennonite, if I recall correctly. The one after, what's his name? Okita? He was really popular back then, but the first time I met him and the first time I really was able to assess him was Smash 4's first Evo with customs, and I believe Abadango's Pac-Man beat one of our players at the time, and it was beat two of our players, I believe, at the time. Otori, thank you, Otori, that was the name. Yeah. And beat two of our players, excuse me, and I believe we beat Esam there too, because that Pac-Man fire hydrant, I forgot exactly what the custom was, but it was dumb. But he was so good, and people were so hype watching him do well because he was the only Pac-Man at the time. So that was really the first couple times I really saw Abadango, and ever since then he's really impressed me in terms of his breadth of characters. He moved from Pac-Man to I forget, someone else. I think it was Meta Knight again, and then he also played another character, and then played
eventually Mewtwo.
Bayonetta, and Mewtwo was the other character.
Yeah, the PAL 2016, that was the famous, first time, well, not first time, but one of the only times a Japanese player took a major here.
Yeah. So you know what? When Ultimate was dropping, was a player I had my eyes on. He has the span. He plays so many different characters at a high level. He's a very popular player in Japan. He's a popular YouTube streamer in Japan as well, and he's one of the faces of Japanese Smash, both locally in Japan and on the international scene. Yeah. And how about yourself? What's your take on him?
I mean, I've seen him featured. Like, one of the things about Abadango that I really enjoy is that he's very flexible, not only in game but also out of game. I've seen him featured practically at every Tokaigi, practically at every Japanese Smash media event, especially the recent ones. Now that Ultimate has now brewed a lot more on like all the streaming platforms, both Twitch and the ones abroad. And the thing that I think made Abadango such a safe pick going into this game was the fact that in the past he's been able to crack the meta, whether by counter pick or by a meta character. He's brought it to the table, and we saw that at the end with Bayonetta. He used Mewtwo for a long time, stopped with Mewtwo. He used Meta Knight for basically exclusively Samsora and a Buzz and Bracket, but then what the trade-off kind of is with having that wide character pool is refining all those characters while everybody else sticks to maybe one, at most two. And so this first season, I know Abadango was disappointed, but he also, I think it's growing pains. And I think someone who's been consistently top 10 in the past has it in him to easily climb into next season and the one after these Inkling, Palutena, Meta Knight habits get, just like refined and improved over time. And as other things shake out, and who knows, like maybe he really vibes with Hero, maybe he really vibes with Banjo. Probably doubtful with Banjo. Don't know if it's his play style, but he's shown that he has the capacity. Whereas many people, and maybe the 21 through 50, they're loyalists, right? We saw in the last PGR in the end of Ultimate, the two at the top were juggling all the characters that they could, Tweak and MKLeo, and I think Abadango fits that trinity.
I completely agree there. And if you even just look at his placings, Genesis, then Frostbite, and you look at like the Member of Japan Major, like he's progressively getting better, as time has gone on so far. So he's absolutely a player to keep an eye on. What was his X factor again? I believe it was positive.
It was definitely positive. I think Japan rode pretty much to the middle of the PGR with positive X factors, and these placings were incredible. Save for the fact that with trying new characters, you also have the fact that you're losing potentially as you're learning to people who people don't expect you to. So looking at his losses here, I mean, he lost to SDX and Prodigy at Genesis 6. Super unexpected. Those names a year ago you wouldn't imagine. SDX would give him a run for his money, but Prodigy, I mean, I think as one of the authors posted, the youngest PGR player in history, taking the record away from MKLeo, because I think Prodigy right now is 14 turning 15 or just turned 15.
I think he's 14.
Yeah, he also lost to Proto Banham, who obviously is up and coming, Logix, Salt won at the 2GG Grand Tour in North Carolina, and even Puppe and Mutes. So +2 X Factor. In the minds of the panelists, this is kind of where they saw him, which makes a lot of sense, because I think he was definitely one of the Smash 4 players people had their eyes on, and when they saw he wasn't doing hot immediately, and other people were starting to take the limelight, he quickly fell in the back of their minds.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that you can't really see from these set counts is how close a lot of these matches were. You know, Abadango is a top competitor. He's a top player, and you know, these losses that he has were not bad, like, were not awful, destroyed losses from what at least I've seen. So even though his X Factor is right around where he is, you know, I think that everyone sort of expects him to get better. Right now, they know he's having a rough time, but he's going to break through, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and for people who are just tuning in, this is Smashcenter covering the top 50 Smash Ultimate players of all time. The X Factor, if you're not familiar with it, is the comparative score that these players get from a panel of 30 people who are TOs, commentators, players themselves. I know ESAM participated in the X Factor panel this time. And they rate everybody on a scale of 1 to 10, everybody who qualified to be on the PGR, about 100 people or so. And based on that rating compared to their objective score, they thought that Abadango belonged at 38 collectively. When you have a positive X Factor, it means people are overrating you compared to what your results can take you towards. And when you have a negative X Factor, it says that people think you should be far lower than where you're actually ranked, meaning they're underrating you compared to your results. That happens all the time to people who play, for lack of a better term, unhyped characters, people who constantly don't play on stream for whatever reason because they just fall out of the limelight, or people that are in other regions that people don't pay attention to. So Coney being most infamous for not paying attention to Japan. For the most part, he would probably underrate a lot of these players or not even know who they are. So right there, 212 set count. That's another thing I want to address, because last 10 that we did on Monday, the 41 through 50, Suarez was a huge point of contention. And something I want to make note of these set counts is these are against the top 50 cut. Once you expand Abadango's wins to everybody who qualified for the PGR, he was beating people like AC, ZD, Choco. He beat Choco twice. He beat Kome, the Shulk from Japan. He beat Ocean, Meru from Europe. He's beaten XX, Nico. Those are now Cali natives. They didn't make the PGR, but he's beating those people at the top as well. However, what you should see this set count as is the gatekeeper, because people at the bottom of the top 50, they're going to be the gatekeepers to the top 50. So something to keep in mind.
Absolutely true. And some of those names, like Ocean's considered one of the best Rob players with Wadi and 8-Bit Man. Like, you know, these are you know, fairly important people. You know, it was very difficult to make top 50 because there's so much competition, and it doesn't necessarily do justice.
Over 20,000.
22,000, more than 22,000 people entered, unique people entered just PGR tournaments, not locals, just PGR tournaments. So that just gives you an idea of really how much competition there was out there. That is, in terms of statistics of just esports and live events and entry, that's nuts.
It's more than nuts. The 1%. It's the 0.01%. So Fatality and Raito, amazing wins. He's even with Raito, of course. But then you also have to look at the quality of losses, which again, this 2 out of 12, many people just might walk out of this thinking, oh, I just gotta get a set from Fatality and Raito, oh, I'll be set. The thing about it too is that Abadango's quality of losses were also very high. When he wasn't losing to these players, he was simply just like in the bracket performing well. But when your tournament spree stops at Cosmos, stops at Mars, I mean, these are really, really hefty names that, for example, at Frostbite 2019, he got 25th, but he lost to Mars and Cosmos. You could have lost to Mars and Cosmos at the same tournament and gotten 7th. That's why, strictly speaking, within the algorithm, raw placements, they don't mean anything. We don't award people 100 points for first, 80 points for second. It's not like Mario Kart circuits. We look at outplacements, who's at the event, who's above who. Because if you go to an event and you outplace Nairo, Tweak, and MKLeo, that's a big deal, as opposed to you going to an event out of 200 people in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and getting first, right? No shade to Arkansas, but just trying to illustrate the point that like people playing in regions that don't have that sort of talent present because they're not traveling or hosting those events, it's hard to really like substantiate what that first place would mean. It's who are you outplacing? So congratulations again to Abadango. Definitely that X factor. Even then, I think you would think he is a lot better than just being in top 40. I think he believes he can make top 10, and we'll see what happens next season. So definitely keep an eye out for him. And even then, just to note, like, this is the 40th player we're talking about. We're not even in the middle of the PGR, and we already hit a household name like Abadango. So once again, I mean, congrats to him, and we'll move on to 39th now. Any surprises here?
So, I have the list up here, so I can't see your screen. Oh, Goblin, yeah! I had no idea who he was. Supposedly a Wi-Fi warrior, came out of nowhere. The only solo Roy main that I've ever seen do as well as he did. I know Tweak did very, very well with Roy, but now is playing Pokemon Trainer, whatever. Goblin just came out of nowhere, racked up great wins, never really broke through in terms of placings, but the people he beat, and you know, I remember there was some controversy in the beginning too, because so many people didn't know who he was that his seeding was too low at events. I think of Frostbite, for example, his seeding was too low. Ooh. And there was a big controversy because people were like, no, Goblin seeded too low, and then they finally moved him up, you know, where more close where he belongs after, I believe, Frostbite, because he did so well. There wasn't enough data behind him to rank him high, but everyone was saying he's good. He proved it. So came out of nowhere, got 39th. I think actually he tweeted that he's unhappy with his placement.
Yeah, so background on Goblin, he's definitely a CFL overlord. He's ranked first. Contrary to what the article said, he was not 8th in CFL. He was first in CFL. He was 8th during Smash Wii U times. Roy, the entire lifespan of Smash Wii U. Roy, now during the entirety of this very short early start in Ultimate. And this player, from what I understand in CFL, was bracket fodder. He'd go in, 0-2, get clapped, leave, try again next week. And that's pretty much like what many people can say is like their first, you know, local experience. Unless you're ESAM and you've been born, you know, nice, as he would say. He started, right? He literally started from the bottom, and now he's here. Like, not even trying to be funny about it. He kept working and working and working, and he built an impressive resume this season. Just a correction in production. He got 5th at Gatorland Spring 2019, not 7th. Oftentimes when we're putting together the production, sometimes things make it onto the video. So just to make a correction there. But everything else was very impressive. Finishing top 16 at Frostbite was huge. 33rd at Smash and Splash was respectable. But the Momocon and Pounds were very good. But it wouldn't be until you really look at his wins that you really realize, wow. Kamame, Puppe, Scat even, and Ryuga. Those were all really great wins to have this season. And he wasn't losing to anybody except people at the top.
So who were some of his losses?
We have Mutace, Ryuga, MVD, Mutace again. He has like 3 sets lost to Mutace. MVD again, Fatality, Dark Wizzy, Captain Zack, Prodigy, Waddy. I mean, when he wasn't losing to them, he was losing to other very strong players like Dyer, for example, and Kobe, who he lost to at Come to Papa 3. Goblin represents what it means to really be like the people's champion in that sense, because he came, you know, pretty much out of nowhere for many people, and he was, of course, playing the entirety of Smash Wii U, but it's when you get that bracket, you make the most of it. He came and showed like everybody what he's about, what CFL's about, and most of all, what Roy's is about, because all throughout Wii U, people would say, oh, Roy's this, Roy's that. Mr. R had a couple comments on him. I knew a couple other players had comments on him, but no one had any results. Now Goblin put him on the map.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, I don't know, like, given the list of wins and losses that he had, just that you did right there, I don't know how one could say that he is out of place. I think he's really squarely right where he belongs in terms of where his placings were. But I think he is a player to watch. I think he's a player that, and I've heard this story time and time again. Ally, when he first appeared in Brawl, Zero when he first appeared in Smash in general, Anti when he first appeared. These players were all Wi-Fi warriors. They were all people that were really known in what is back then all as Brawl in the Wi-Fi ladders. And then they finally started going to offline tournaments, and they were doing very, very well. They didn't. I don't remember if they started out dominant as dominant, but regardless, Goblin to me is just hearing that story yet again. An online warrior that started going to offline tournaments and starts doing extremely well. So he's, I know I said this just about Abadango, but he's a player that I really have my eye on in terms of where he will go. And my biggest question is, he can do this to Roy. Roy is debatable. Okay, this is difficult, but debatable where he is on a tier list, maybe high tier, maybe mid tier. But if you played Joker, what could he do? I think he has a lot of hidden potential. His X factor of -4, I think, just again goes towards the fact he didn't break into those top 8s. So perception of Goblin may not necessarily be there yet. But keep your eyes peeled when you hear his name.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like having beaten Omeki, having beaten Ryuga, Kameme, players who last iteration, and we're talking a lot about like the previous iteration of Smash, and to be quite honest, that's all we really have to base our perceptions on. A lot of these players who just blew up recently. Kameme got second at Evo. Goblin beat him like that. Like Kameme he's not free, doesn't give sets away for free. Like he had to fight to get that set, and he fought it with Roy no less. But I think, speaking earlier to what you mentioned about him being upset potentially with his ranking, I saw the fire. I saw that like he's not satisfied, and I think that's the markings of like a true top player. But at the same time, I think too is like when you're always scrapping, when you're fighting to get to the top, like if you don't have your results validated in a way that you think they should be, you might turn to being upset with the situation, might start pointing fingers or something. Not saying that he did that, but if Goblin were to turn around and look at the thousands that he laid to waste and like the foundation that he built for himself, like there's a lot to be proud of. Like again, 39th on the first Smash Ultimate PGR is probably going to be harder to get than arguably top 30 on the next PGR, and it gets like harder and harder to like score even just in the top 50 as the seasons go on, because as we saw in Smash Wii U, I mean, I remember number 50, the first ever 50th person, Terror Bear. Falcon from Cali or Southwest. I don't think he was Arizona. Like there were key people like Foe, like there are people in the very beginning that get ranked and then they fall off, and it's not any shade to them, but most of the time it's because other people just keep rising. And with this being this initial snapshot, like it's all going to get crazier. And so to make it in first in line at this like first release specifically is incredible. Like this 39th to me, this entire top 50 to me almost has like a similar weight to like the top 20 that the next future PGRs are going to take, because it's the first one. And it's for many people, especially people who are new to Ultimate, because there are plenty of new people to Ultimate, whether we acknowledge it or not. This is their first introduction, and this is potentially someone's first role model for Roy. Like, oh wow, like Fire Emblem's coming out, I think today, tomorrow, or it's coming out in Japan, whatever. Three Houses, obviously Roy's not in it, but as like a Fire Emblem representative, this is like a hot commodity. This is insane. It's like doing it with Incineroar or like the new upcoming Pokemon, or if like you become really good at Banjo, like everyone's gonna know. Like you just did it with a new character, you just did it with a popular character. So big ups to Goblin. He has so much to be proud of, especially considering the fact he started as a Wi-Fi warrior. And who knows, he might be the next Zero Anti, but he might also be the next Cosmos. Like Cosmos started as a Naifu. He started platform dropping like 100 times in a row on stream. He won every PG key and had to reject it, right? Yeah. I mean, you had experience with that. Couldn't travel without mom and dad. And then now look at him. So Goblin has so much to aspire to, but he's already accomplished so much in such a short time. So big ups to him for sure.
Yeah.
So 39th goes to him. Shout outs to him and 8 Prime, his team. I think like with 513 again, you're starting to see these set counts get more on the even side. They honestly don't even get positive until the very top because everybody loses to the top and the top beats everybody. So,
and again, this goes towards what you're saying is that, you know, when you see the set counts, you see the wins losses, you're not seeing the amazing players that they beat to get there. You're just seeing the top echelon and how they fared against them.
Exactly. And speaking about the top echelon, Mr. Consistent Attendance here, Mr. E, I think every season in Smash Wii who is ranked, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's pretty much always been a presence. Tri-State hero, Sortie hero, played Marth exclusively in the very beginning of Smash Wii U, stayed with that, started juggling Lucina once Bayo became a thing. In this game, we see Lucina in the lead. So every domestic A and S tier he was at. And that as well, and you can speak more to this as like a team owner, getting to every event, traveling to every event, preparing for every event takes a huge toll.
Yes, without a doubt. And from an org standpoint, in terms of cost, Smash players are the most expensive thing we have because there's so many tournaments that you have to go to, and they're so expensive and they're so frequent. It's actually ridiculous. But, you know, whenever we pick up a new player, in Smash especially, I always tell them, you know, now that you're on PG, you're going to have the opportunity to go to a lot of tournaments. Don't do that. You know, we make it available as an option to them, but I always tell them, look, you're going to get burned out. We've seen it. I've seen it in ESAM. I've seen MVD. I've seen it in Trella. I've seen it in every player that we've picked up that they go and they go and they go and they go and they burn out because they play so much. So, you know, it's tough to truly convey the significance of consistency and how, you know, truly impressive that actually is in Smash, and in how much travel there is involved and the mental fortitude it takes to be consistent in a Smash game when you're traveling as much as someone like Mr. E. So, you know, he was duly rewarded for that consistency. I think, you know, he did very, very well with that, but it really just shows you that, you know, you put that grind in, that's not easy, but you will be rewarded. You will always be up there.
Yeah, and he didn't just show up. I mean, even though these placings for many people, especially top players, they don't feel as good as they look. Top 16, that's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment for so many people, especially like at Smash and Splash, such a stacked tournament, and that's with round robin and all the Swiss mess that they did. You know, CEO, Prime Saga, and Pound also top 16. Being in and around there, he's always a threat. If he's in your pool, you're not getting out scot-free, and usually he's first seed in your pool. Mr. E, like, also with all this attendance, like, he racked up a ton of wins that were impressive. But the thing, too, that I want to point out that you mentioned earlier, like, you saw this burnout in ESAM, you've seen it in other players, is when you're also competing this much, your ability to make content, which is now like what many people look towards in top players in FGC, in Smash, in League, in all the other esports, your ability to do that quickly diminishes. So it's balancing whether or not you're making content, balancing whether or not you're traveling. And I know, for example, Nairo, I have, you know, had this talk with him before, like, Nairo's pretty publicly explained that he reserves 2 weekends max out of the entire month to go to majors. And, you know, he has to balance like running his stream, and whether or not the two he chooses are the ones that he performs well at. Like, he can't decide that. He plays his best. But again, someone like Mr. E, I mean, he's always in there. He's in the trenches. So big ups to him. He also, not even just the A and S tiers, he's also a C tier fiend. I mean, in and around Tri-State, I think it's going to be a good season for him next time, because Tri-State's stacked, the tournaments are going to be stacked, and the ratings are also going to be stacked.
Yeah, and you know, Mr. E's also one of those players, when you watch him, he learns as he plays. You know, he'll drop a set or drop a game, not a set, you know, here and there, but, you know, one game that is almost a 3-stock on him, and then he'll come back and almost 3-stock them. Like, he, in my opinion, is definitely a player that's defined by his ability to adjust, and he might start out a little bit rough in this set, but then he ramps it up, and he ramps it up hard. So I actually find him fairly entertaining to watch because of that. You're seeing him getting almost bodied in the beginning, and then all of a sudden he turns it around. And he's like, he deserves to be a top player based just on that ability, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, and the adaptability that he has, serves him clearly. And right now, like in this first season, listen, people he dropped the game to Bear, the Evo, CEO, Genesis, Renowned TO, and no shade to Bear, but he dropped the game to Bear, but then the game after was a 3-stock. And so learning these new matchups or learning old characters on this new engine takes everybody a second. And I think for Mr. E, it takes about as long as most, but maybe then some. But as soon as he's got it, he doesn't forget it. And while many people struggle for seasons, and don't ever figure out the matchup for, Bowser, who we see right now tearing it up with Leon. But I think right now what we're seeing is, these double sets on Myron, MVD, Leon, Captain L, awesome. And his quality of losses, again, he is probably the definition of a gatekeeper. Losing to Cosmos to Buzz Fatality, Light, MK Leo, who hasn't at this point, if you're a competitive smasher? Those names are bracket enders. They send people home, if you run into them in losers. Anytime Cosmos to Buzz Fatality, Light, or MK Leo, it hasn't really happened to MK Leo except for in Japan, but anytime they get upset, they ruin tournaments because everyone that comes into their way gets absolutely demolished. So respectable performances by Mr. E. The panel also puts him at 37th in their collective minds. Nothing to be ashamed of as well. And making it on this first list was so important. I think for Mr. E, that's a huge achievement, a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. I'm trying to find actually his response to it. I don't think I saw it on Twitter yet.
He was happy. He was made it, awesome, solid. And I know he holds himself to higher standards, but being realistic, it's he traveled to every SNA tier. He was learning this entire time. I would say the first season, the most important thing for every PGR aspiring player or recently ranked player is, did you learn? Because the second season is going to be harder. It's not getting any easier. Everyone's already got a target on their back. And characters are being looked at more and more. The more sets that Mr. E plays on stream, the more people have to study him. And that's the next time he might get blown up by the potential next best banjo, or who knows, right? And that's the issue, and something that I think Zero, sort of harped on during his reign of dominance, is that everybody knows how to play against him, but he has to be ready for people he doesn't even know yet. So
yes, that's absolutely true.
This first season, it's only going to get more difficult, and being at the table now makes it so that you can at least dictate how that sway might go by, being able to form these opinions on the characters and their viability, and looking at the meta and being ahead of the curve, right? By being able to practice the players at similar skill levels. And a player that again started at 40th, this next one. But yeah, this 31 through 40 is scary. So scary.
It is. And nothing is, I think, more terrifying than this player. And that amazing transition right there. That was terrifying how good that was. So, Prodigy.
Tell them about Prodigy. Tell the people.
You just see a kid. And for the longest time, I'm looking for footage of this after I hear what happens, because he was never on stream for Genesis. He got 13th. And I hear... A 14-year-old kid who plays at Genesis. A 14-year-old kid who plays Mario got 13th, and he beat some big. What? You never hear about something like this unless it's something that's
and it's Mario,
very real.
Which it's for the most part, the narrative is established. He's not a threat unless he's in the hands historically of Anti or even Dark Wizzy. But
even then, at the time of Genesis, I'm pretty sure people were still saying
Sleeping on
Mario was better than Mario, which was absurd.
It's like a troll pick.
But and that's exactly it. With a character that everyone was sleeping on hard, and he got 13th. Oh, he was 13 at Genesis. Okay, turned 14 2 days later. Thank you, Stuart, for that. That's insane.
He was 13 at the time that he got 13th at Genesis?
That's actually kind of funny. 13 at 13th.
That's so poetic.
Yeah. He is...
But you have to talk about...
Going to be somebody.
Yeah, you have
Prodigy,
to talk about
Prodigy's going to be somebody.
Yeah, the the nerves or the lack of nerves too at being at that age and playing at that level. I don't understand. It's only something I've only really seen in Leo, because some of the other younger players, like trying to think of like the youngest of the young. I mean, anyone who's like 17, 18, I mean, they're turning into like adults now. But in the 16, 17 age range, like I remember Captain Zach, like a lot of the like younger players in Smash 4, like you could see them sweat. Like they are subject to pressure. But for Prodigy to be even younger and performing at that caliber, I have no words.
Honestly, exactly what you're saying. The testament to the mental fortitude it takes to be a competitor and being a top level player is so much. And it requires so much effort, and it takes some people years to really get rid of their tournament jitters. So for him to do well, not only at Genesis at the beginning of the season, but as CEO at the end of the season, he went to the two tournaments, the punctuating beginning and end. Well, Albion is technically the end, but whatever. And did that well. This guy is not only going to be a top player, but he is consistent, and he has that mental fortitude to be able to stand toe-to-toe with top players.
Yeah.
So I have to say, of everyone on the PGR, Prodigy is the person I have my eyes on the most, the person I'm most excited about in Smash and Ultimate in general, because I want to see this kid become somebody great. And I will tell you, his response to getting 37th, his little like screenshot of the notepad from his iPhone that he tweeted out, he's so excited to get that placing, and he's so just wholesome in clearly what he's trying to do. So I don't know, man. I'm really a fan of Prodigy right now.
Yeah, this set count, one of the first even ones that we're seeing. And mind you, like 50%, yeah, that's failing in most classes in this country. But for what it's worth here,
I want to slap you for that.
Getting 7 wins, 7 PGR wins. This is already after the fact that he's beaten everybody to get to top 16, beaten everybody to get to top 32. Abadango, Cosmos, Dark Wizzy, Fatality, Goblin. I mean, he was able to sway public opinion for a second and have people sweating whether or not it was him or Dark Wizzy over each other as best Mario in the world. Since Mario's pretty much been dropped by everybody that was like for more or less playing him in Smash 4, Dark Wizzy stayed, and now Prodigy making a statement.
And some people may argue that he beat Dark Wizzy, so he's the better Mario. I've been playing competitive gaming for 12 years or so now. No, the Ditto or the mirror match does not mean you're better at that character. All right,
it's its own thing.
I'm just straight up putting that out there, man.
Yeah,
that is some BS.
I mean, it's nice, but it had Dark Wizzy at least sweating too, because that's pride, and like he obviously takes it upon himself to really put himself out there as like the Mario main. But for Prodigy to have achieved this now, I mean, he flew under the radar. X Factor put him at 42nd, which is still pretty high. I mean, all things considered. I mean, again, there were 100 people. Everybody rated everybody. He was ending 42nd in people's minds. That's impressive, but what we'll see now is it's only up from here. I mean, the only other player that's kind of doing it at this level, but just started a little bit too late and hasn't been maybe at the same event and gotten the same results as Spargo, the Mexican Cloud. Doing it with a character, Cloud, who many people dropped across the board. We haven't seen Tweak really play Cloud in bracket, maybe messing around on stream. All the other Clouds, I mean, gone.
Right.
But Spargo, like, I mean, he beat Void pretty convincingly at a local or at a regional or something. I can't remember, but he did that, right? He beat Void, who's not anyone to sleep. I mean, it's Void, so big ups to Prodigy. Also with Armada, with the team, already respectable. I like the theme we're seeing. Usually post PGR, there's a lot of signings, but going into the Ultimate PGR, seeing the amount of teams already involved leads me to believe like there's like a nice future ahead of time.
We'll see. I will stay mute on that topic right now.
I mean, it's better than the first one. I mean, the first one for Smash 4, like, I don't remember how many people were signed. Like, maybe.
Well, I will say that many teams have come up to me, and I know you, Suar, as well, thanking us for making the PGR, because that's how they justified picking up players to like the higher ups. It was they said, "Oh, look, he's ranked at this." So I do know that that basically the entire top 10, kind of zero. The very first PGR stuff, they were signed because of the PGR. So this is a huge career builder for a lot of people. But in this day and age, also with how content creation, exactly as you alluded to with Mr. E, is important. It becomes more than just the PGR, but without the PGR, they can't make the decision to pick someone up for a lot of teams.
Yeah, and even Mr. E tweeted about that too, being rather self-aware about the topic. Mentioned that like placements aren't everything, and it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, placements aren't anything, but you can't not place in the money, and you can't not place in the top. But what is true, and what certain top players already have experienced, is just getting onto a team doesn't guarantee success for the brand, both for you and them. Like,
yep.
I think in Smash 4 there are a lot of growing pains of like, how do I grow with a brand? What does it mean to grow with a brand? I think the best team so far in Ultimate to have done it from scratch with a player was United with Samsora. Like, we saw the amount of support, and I'm not gonna be biased towards Panda. Panda's obviously great, but I'm saying for a player in Ultimate, right? Just to have one player and to groom them as much as they have, like, I'm very impressed with like how he
had a lot of momentum going in as well. A lot of people talking about him, a lot of buzz about him, and he stepped up to that. And I'm very impressed with how content creation wise, both United has supported him and Samsora himself has put into it, and good for him. I really didn't know Samsora outside of his ridiculous tweets, as a person. I love him during the Smash 4 era. Yeah, I was afraid what he would be like when he had a platform, because people would tweet he would. I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be awful.
The night before Defend the North, I was in a locked subway car with him and Mars and a bunch of friends doing an escape room, and Samsora plays out exactly as you would imagine in an escape room. Sitting there looking pretty, and then that's pretty much it.
Should have had a camera in there just to hear the things he would say.
It was fun. I mean, he had his moments, but by and large, talking about Prodigy now, talking about teams. Yes, going right now doesn't mean like, yes, Smash is going to be set for life and all this, but like it is nice to see, and we'll see after this week, especially after Evo, after people have explosive runs, and we see who wins it and who's top 8, because that top 8 is going to be immortalized. Who's going to be signed, who's going to be approached. We even saw, like, with the recent, I mean, I know it's like already a dead horse, but like even when Bachi beat Ally at that one local, and like Zero made a video on it, like even then bringing that much attention, like people listen to like the buzz and they offer and they step in. And I know a team went in and then they stepped out or whatever, but it happens, right? And now this is where it all really begins, because it's just the number. It's like, I am 10th, I am 15th, I'm 20th, I'm top 50, and every team is trying to get their foot in the door. So congrats to Prodigy, big ups to Armada. They gave us a very nice picture to feature of him. And also to note, he uses the Mario from the wedding version from Odyssey, which
I like that.
Yeah, that's character. So congrats to Prodigy, 37th, 36th now, however. Someone who kind of like Abadango at 40th. Many people, I wouldn't say they're not surprised, but they're definitely disappointed. And he accepts the reality, because he's very critical about himself, very humble. I mean, you've met Mr. R. He's been a past Panda when he won the PGQ from Europe, right?
That was our only PGQ from Europe. He was the winner. He wore a PG jersey
when he beat the Buzz at Big House.
Yep, and he really stepped up at Big House. Now he's on Beast Coast. Nice team, good people. They're really taking care of him, helping him. So his flag may show the EU Netherlands, but right now he lives in Ohio.
It's every other month or every 3 months. He visits the Loft. I know the Loft right now is undergoing a transitional phase, so he's not so much in the Midwest, but historically, Mr. R has been where the Loft is, the collective of like Nacat, False, and I think at one point tweak. It used to be in Jersey, then it went to Ohio, and I think it's back to Jersey. They're moving, but yeah, he's the hero of Europe. He pretty much had Europe on his back the entirety of Smash 4, and right now it's some other European, which we'll talk about later. But
exactly, and so Mr. R. Ramen, a wonderful guy, great human being, a lot of fun to talk to, super chill, super easy to talk to,
personable.
Very personable individual. Nice haircut too. I can say nothing but good things about Ramen as a human being. He is the meme of milk before the cereal. He actually
changed the internet for a good week.
Yeah, he trended. Yeah, he trended on the internet. He trended on Twitter, where people were saying Mr. R does this before this, and people didn't know who Mr. R was. So he became a household name very quickly. But he's suffering from a character crisis. The number of times he switched mains in the first 6 months, of the season is insane. I mean, right now it shows Crom, and is that his main right now? I don't know. But he is a top player. He was top 10 many times in Smash 4's time, and in fact,
he never left it. He never left it.
Never left top 10. There you go.
Void left it before he did, and I know that for a fact. He bottomed out at 10th a few times, and then I think the highest he gotten would have been somewhere in the 6, 7, 8 range. I can't remember.
I remember one of them was really close between 10 and 11 for him, and I remember you were happy they end up in 10 because we all like him as a human. So Mr. R's placement from Smash 4 to Ultimate is probably the biggest drop. I don't know if that's true, but as far as my recollection is,
Abadango, him, up and around there. Or if you want to be real, Larry, because not spoiling anything, but I don't think Larry made it. And he stayed top 8, I want to say, the entirety of Smash 4.
Right. So,
character crisis.
Character crisis is really holding him back. That said, though, I'm looking at his tweet from yesterday. I saw this before. I want to bring it up. He won the CLG round robin over Void, Larry, Xax, Eon, and Nico. Very good players. Nico's a shulk. I know he's insane.
SoCal,
and Xax, and I don't know who Eon is, but whatever. And he was playing Crom, Snake, and Young Link. and he's not sure if those are his characters yet. So he has a lot of potential to get back up to where he belongs. That said, he even tweeted out 36 is low for his standards. He's happy he even made it. But he is also confident. He knows he's going to get back up. He's going to improve a lot. He's going to be part of the top echelon again. Mr. R is certainly one to watch.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I want to highlight for Mr. R was in the past, traveling to the United States, always a challenge. I know that he has dual citizenship with countries that this country has just a bunch of barring policies for travel and so on and so forth. So it's been hard for him. I know that. I don't want to misname him, but there was another person from the European region who won a trip to Evo and couldn't attend because of a similar travel ban. I want to say it was Meru, the Peach. But if you look at his player card, the way that the S tiers are organized on the top and the A tiers on the bottom, and I know we had a lot of design talks about this, but they're all chronological. So G6, Frostbite, that's the winter events typically, right into spring, February. Ubuntu Japan Major, of course, happening in Japan, and then Momocon, the Southeast Major, and then Smash and Splash, finally the last Midwestern S tier. He missed Genesis and Frostbite. If he had attended and performed at this level or higher, I think he would have saw an increase of at least 10 spots, if not more. He'd probably be undergoing that character crisis still. So he might be suffering a little bit of an Abadango syndrome too. So maybe that would have been worse for him, because when you're trying out Snake for not the first time, because I know he had a lot of experience in Brawl, but when you're trying out Snake against a new matchup, unexpected things might happen. And obviously to compare Brawl to Ultimate there's just too many things to account for. If he would have messed up there, it could have cost him. So maybe this is exactly what he had to do to land where he did. But even then, at Albion and all the tournaments that he competed at, he was doing well now towards the end. He has a rhythm. He has a groove. I know he wanted to do better at CEO, But I think like now that he's narrowed it from maybe 5 characters to 3, we're going to see a little bit more consistency.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So if you skip ahead, if you will, to his set counts, take a look at those names.
Yeah,
MKLeo.'s Joker. So this is post Joker patch. Was one of his wins. Like his X Factor is +7. Everyone knows he's good. He has that ceiling of a top player, and anyone who can beat MKLeo, I don't care what the event is. When MKLeo is actually serious and he's trying, which at the time I believed he was fairly new to Joker, but he's still trying hard.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that can be nuts because Leo is a very strong player right now, and he does not give away sets very easily. He doesn't give away games.
God, yeah, him. He Leo's too much. But
I stand corrected. He beat him at Prime Saga, which is pre-Joker.
Well, yeah. So the player card features. I mean, usually they're
right. I misunderstood that, but still,
yeah.
Thank you for that correction.
There was an Ike in the mix. I mean, Leo was trying out Ike just for his nair, pretty much, is what I saw in the very beginning, and no one had any counterplay for any of the stuff he was doing with Ike. And it's funny because obviously I'm not gonna digress too much, but whatever Leo picks up immediately breaks. And then it becomes like a character that people kind of want to hate, but they really just hate how Leo can be so good with them. Because if you watch, like other people have played Ike or maybe have tried Ike, but no one has won like Leo did. So Mr. R
Thank you for the host, Mars, by the way.
Yeah, let's shout out to Mars. Not in this section of the PGR. But when you consider the fact that in the previous iteration, he could go toe-to-toe, like he'd go toe-to-toe with MKLeo all the time. And what's funny is that Mr. R is the person, he's the guy who not necessarily discovered MKLeo, but he got, it was the clap heard around the world. Back then, Smash Factor, maybe 2 or 3, one of the very early ones.
2. Yeah.
Very early. I mean, the stream quality was just nuts. So like Leo was a little like tadpole, and it was low. It was lore, right? MKLeo. He said he made a tweet back then, probably the only arrogant tweet he's ever made, where he was like, "I'm gonna be better than the Zero," and everybody was just laughing. This guy's in Mexico. What is he gonna do? Come here and beat everybody? Narrator, he did. But Mr. R lost to him. Mr. R had just gotten top 3, or I want to say top 4 at Evo to 0. Because
then he went to Mexico and lost to a kid.
Then he went to Mexico and lost to a child, to a literal child. And everybody was like, Mr. R is washed, Mr. R is this. Then the caravan started to travel to Mexico, and that's when you found Nakat and Vinny and some of the other people also losing to Leo. Maybe not Nakat, but I do remember Vinny specifically. And it was just like, oh, he is good. Then Leo started coming here, and then the rest is history. So the fact that he could do it in this game.
Yeah, I remember the controversy, actually, when MKLeo was first ranked on the PGR. I think it was PGR 2 or 3.
He was ranked on the first one at 19, I believe.
Oh, was it that? We got so much flack for that ranking, for that placement, and because the algorithm that you had designed. No, I think it was 2, because the algorithm that you had devised was better for hidden gems that couldn't travel. So he ended up, I think it was like 13th. He ended up like super high. Well, maybe it was 19th. Maybe you might be right.
Top 20.
So many people, top 20. So many people were upset. Like, how did he make it up there? He only has like 2 or 3 tournaments. Blah blah blah. And of course the Mexicans were all like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. He belongs up there. 19th. I think he's Stuart. My God, were we proven right with that one? But anyways, you are absolutely right. But going back to Mr. R, that was the discovery of MKLeo's true talent. Was when he went to that Smash Factor.
And the fact that he's been able to get a set and hit on him right now, who MKLeo ended as the best Smash 4 player when Smash 4 organically ended. Obviously, Zero being the best of all time. Leo ended as the best at the last chapter. He took that skill clearly into Ultimate, as he's shown everybody from 2nd through 50th. Not spoiling anything, but I mean, it's just it's the insanity that he's laid. waste to everybody. The fact that Mr. R could do it now is incredible. And Suarez and Cat Esam also great wins as well. But again, like quality of win. Cosmos, Light, Nairo, Tweak, Zachary. And Zachary, another Prodigy-esque, MKLeo-esque, like very mysterious figure that a lot of people are, like he has a lot riding on him. Another
the Genesis picture of his feet not touching the ground when sitting in the gaming chair. It's truly iconic. That's something just any true fan of Smash that is as old as I am should get excited that like this new wave of players is breaking through to the top so quickly, and it's so exciting to see because it's really mixing it up in a very interesting way. But anyways, I think we can move on to our next.
Talking about new players though breaking to the top. This is another PGR first, both as a person and as a main. 35th this time around goes to, again, points to Tri-State. Leon, a Bowser main, incomprehensible a year ago. Bowser heavies at large. Previous iteration, easy, easy to sort of get around for the most part. Obviously, Donkey Kong existed with Ding Dong, and there were some other gimmicks that were present in the meta. But this game, Frame 3 jump squat for everybody, Frame 4, different story. So Sheik used to pretty much keep Bowser at bay, some of the other heavies at bay, even ZSS with some of the stuff that she had. But now, like, we see a totally different story. And what's crazy here is the fact that Leon had one major attendance, and he got 9th at what happened to have been the second most stacked tournament in the entire season.
Yeah, and, now this is a debatable one. I think it's actually better that thank you. Controversial, not debatable. It's actually better because he did so well at a recent tournament, Defend the North, which is going to be on PGR V2. That the perception of his placing is better. But regardless, people look at this card and like, well, it's so empty. How did Leon get there? Why is he placed so high? Why is he above this person? Why is he above that person? It's so sus. I've actually seen several people say the word sus, that Leon is where he is. So please walk me through this, Director of PG Stats. How is his score high enough to get him at 35th?
So, when he wasn't beating Dill, Blazing Pasta, Juice, Arfang, or Blank, names that for many people are bracket enders in the early stages, they're all snipers of pools. For sure. He was beating Nairo, Cosmos, and Frozen. Now, the biggest name that stands out there is Nairo, then of course Cosmos, and then recently Frozen, who was ranked for what he was doing both at Collision and in Tri-State. Those wins are very, very top-heavy. And it's no surprise that they're so heavily weighted, considering the fact that all those players I just named, Nairo, Cosmos, and Frozen, did a lot this season. A lot that comes as a surprise for people in this PGR is how people can be rated based on either not attending too much or like having a horrible placement or, placing highly but still not making it even then. And as we try to reiterate each and every time, the placement is just the beginning of the story. The rest of the story are the bracket run, the losses that were incurred. At Smash and Splash, he lost to Ally and Samsora. And those two losses alone are not necessarily a boost, but like they're absolutely quote unquote the people he should be losing to if he wants to remain at the top. What we kind of call like randoms when people have like bad losses, like people who are like just completely out of left field, that really hurts a player's score, because what's assumed when these players go into the match is that player A has a stronger rating than player B. And for all these cases, Leon had exactly like much lower of a rating than Nairo, Cosmos, and even Frozen. And so the fact that he was able to upset them dramatically shifted the odds in his favor. And then when he wasn't winning, he was losing to, again, he only lost to Mr. E, Nairo, Wishes, Nairo again, Ally, and Samsora. So all of those losses at Suplex City, Smash and Splash, and Collision meant that he only lost to the top. So the way that's interpreted and then factored in goes into a score, which again, 3-6, 33%. He lost a bunch of times to Nairo, or he lost twice to Nairo rather. That ends up counting and racking up, you know? And it's a strange case because, again, people might get the idea like, oh, I just need to go to one tournament and do very well. Well, the thing is that from that, you know, him not attending other tournaments actually kind of decays his score. Like, because people don't attend events, they're not subject to like the brackets that they're in, or they would be in, and so their scores naturally start decaying. And so the people that attend more obviously start to get more opportunities, start to be factored in within more sets. But like Leon was a very perfect example of someone who did it just right, probably unintentionally, because I don't think Leon planned that morning when he woke up, okay, I'm gonna beat Cosmos, I'm gonna beat Nairo, to beat Frozen in the way that he did it. It's amazing that he did, and it's funny because every time a PGR comes out, there's that period of time where tournaments happen over the weekend, and either someone who's rated very low claps everybody like he just did at Defend the North, or someone who's rated very highly loses in pools. And so, you know, to keep in mind, this was from February until July, and that's what Leon did. That's what he was perceived to perform at. This X Factor, though, I mean, this is in line with what Tri-State was pretty much hit with. Double-digit negative X Factors across the board. I mean, it happened to the Great Gonzalez, it happened to Frozen, and their mine's 45th, you know?
And this, of course, before DTN. But, you know, this goes to show you that the perception was he was sort of this one-run wonder. You know, but again, and back to your points, like the people he beat and the people he lost to were very reasonable, and a lot of people don't understand as well. It's not just who you beat, but it's where you beat, who you outplaced at where you outplaced them. So you said Smash and Splash was the second highest S tier, which matters. You know that is a heavy impact on his score. So, you know, given that run, I'm actually running through his run right now. It took me a while because of the whole Swiss pools and everything. In pools, he beat Ned, outplacing him. He lost to Ally early in the bracket, but then he made it through blank 3-0 to Cosmos and lost to Samsora in a 3-2.
3-2.
Tying, 3-2. He beat people such as Wishes, Salem, Great Gonzalez, Captain Zach, Mr. E. He outplaced them at Smash and Splash. And he placed the same as Scat, Light, Shoyo James. You know, like these names are big names, you know, like he did really, really well at this event. And you know, it's hard, I feel, as a panel of people, of professional players and everything, to rate him highly, because you always have that in the back of your head of, is it just Bowser? People are unfamiliar with that matchup, even though he beat Nairo, who plays Bowser. You know, is that carrying him? And you know, I think that is still a question, but much quieter voice in the back of your head after his run at Defend the North. But what do you think?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is 57.4 is his overall score. We scaled the score for 50th place. Captain L this time took the honor to be 50, like 50.0, and then first place is always 100. So from 50th to now, we've gone up only 7.4 points. The person before him, Mr. R, he was rated, if I find it here, Leon, Mr. R is 57. Okay, so 57 going now to 57.4, barely over by a hair. And as we'll see in the next player, like it doesn't even get much more than that. So we're not even jumping tiers here. These players are all so close to each other. And even though, yes, from 50th to 35, we've had 15 ranks go through, it doesn't take away from the fact that, like, again, once you get, like, people always ask every season without fail, why don't you do a top 100? Well, again, the way Melee does things with like their balloting procedure and everything else kind of allows for something like that. But when we're looking at these sets, we're looking at this data, looking at these interactions, Area 51 is always collectively 51st because such little such little data like kind of separates them between each other. It's only really until you get to the 30 range and the 20 range that you see those gaps. And we have like, again, 42.6 points to go to get to the top. So through that, we're going to get another like 15 players, or sorry, 34 players. I looked at it backwards. 34 players to make up those remaining points. So Leon just made it over Mr. R. And all of these players down from 31 through 50, they're all in and around each other. And those explosive wins, those legendary bracket runs, those amazing placements all culminate to like sort of creating those differences, but with so little to sometimes differentiate them. And in this case, Leon being the highest quality of both sides, having such incredible wins, and the people who he beat being, or he beat out rather in the placements, being also so great. Because again, like, yes, he placed 9th at Smash and Splash, but he outplaced like a host of people, like you mentioned before. All of that combines with the fact that, again, his losses are amazing. Like, it's weird to think of losses as an amazing thing, but if you're only losing to the top, then that means that you belong right under them, and that's where Leo resides. Or sorry, Absolutely. Leon. But yeah, it can't be understated, and it's difficult to really consider, I guess, like Smash stats in that sort of light. But
and I just have to also plug that I like his response the most. To his placement, which is handsome turtle man invades children's party game leaderboard. No emotion, just that in a sentence. That was wonderful. I read that, and that gave me a little tickle.
What's interesting now, as we'll see with the reveal progressing, is people new to the PGR. You get a new introduction to them, or rather, a very unique one. And I hope that Leon and some of the other newcomers like Goblin like really take it in stride that like now people are looking at you. Like now people are like, okay, there's this guy, or girl. They're ranked, maybe a big deal, maybe not. I'm gonna upset them. I'm gonna get them in bracket, or maybe now on Twitter like their opinion holds a different weight. Maybe like now other people are more inclined to play Bowser, or like maybe now there's a demand, or like they want to know like, Leon, how do you play Bowser? Now he has the platform to potentially make guides, and they're going to be received well because, hey, this is the only Bowser, no spoilers, but I mean, conceivably the only Bowser in the PGR, like that holds merit. So,
wait, so you're saying Nairo's not on the PGR?
Anyways, for Leon and all the others, like, take this in stride because people are paying attention. And I like that that's his response, because I personally don't know Leon that well. I saw him briefly at Defended North in a crowd. I was like, okay, that's Leon. Shorter in person than I thought. But, now people are looking. So heads up to anybody who's PGR this time that hasn't been before, because yes, you can tweet however you want still. And if you want to be on a team, you got to tweet a little differently. But now people are going to be asking different questions and looking at you through a different lens. So congrats to Leon. Love the, not even a brag, but just love the humor of it. That's great to have, especially in these times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 35th goes to Leon, Spectrum Smash, shout outs to them. I know that's like a tri-state outfit. They also run a local/monthly, I believe, similar to Xenos, with House of 3000 as their streaming outfit. But 34th now, we move closer to the end. This player for an entire region, and especially for someone that we know near and dear, was incredible to have featured. 34th goes to Yeti.
Now, correct me if I'm mistaken, this is probably the first Minneapolis player we've ever seen on a PGR, and frankly speaking, the first Minnesota player I know. I was watching Yeti in the very beginning because Plup played Mega Man, and of the good Mega Mans, Yeti was up there, and he was taking down big names, prior to the nerf to the Leaf Shield, and even after the nerf. I'm not saying anything, that he got worse or, isn't as good.
It's a new challenge, sure.
Exactly. He just has to adjust. But it really, truly came out of nowhere to me. I didn't know who he was. Really fun to watch. Incredible Mega Man. And he has a snake as well. On PG, our chief of staff is actually Jash. And Jash is a wonderful human being. I'm under orders to say good things about Yeti because Yeti is like his ward. He's been taking Yeti from place to place, and really helping him get out to events. Shout outs to Josh for believing in his local hero and giving him those chances whenever he can. And shout outs to Yeti for stepping up to taking those chances that he was given, and showing he is deserving of that. And ironically, I'm looking at his Twitter. I don't even see his own response. All he did was retweet Josh and retweet Down B, which is his team, a Minnesota collaboration. And
hero of the Midwest for many.
Yeah, honestly speaking, he is the Midwest player to watch. I still think he's got so much potential, and he's one of the players really taking Mega Man to the next level. I really am looking forward to seeing where he goes. I don't know if it's going to be up or down. I don't. I have no conception of what Mega Man's place in the meta is going to be with power shielding and everything, parrying, getting bigger and bigger. I don't know. What do you think about Yeti?
Well, at Frostbite, which is going to be the glaring placement here, devastating placement for a would-be PGR player. One of the bigger events for sure, but the smallest S tier that we had rated. As I stated earlier, of the S tiers, it's Genesis, Smash and Splash, Umeburo Japan Major, Momocon, and then finally Frostbite. Frostbite was closer to being an A tier than it was anything else. That's where he got 97. He lost to Frozen and Goma Kempi. Correct me if I said that wrong. But
probably it's a hard name.
With that being said, though, that was kind of like the stain on his record, and the constant challenge, the design challenge with these cards is like trying to tell the whole story. So like as we see on the next stream coming up after like these quick highlights, he did great at B and C tiers. He won a C tier, which don't sleep on C tiers. Like if you're watching this and you wonder, C tiers are always happening, whatever. I mean, there's still regionals, there's still monthlies. People like Mars, are at C tiers. People like Void are at C tiers. I know especially C tiers and B tiers even are big in the Northeast, in Tri-State, and the Mid-Atlantic. I know that VGBC has a great thing going with like Glitch, and a lot of the monthlies that they run because they have a nice venue. Those are wins. Those are valid wins. Those are important wins, important losses, important placements. And 3-8, tough, of course, to look at, but 2 on MVD and 1 on Great Gonzalez. I mean, the MVD wins are really putting in work here, and the outplacements that he had at Genesis with 9th, and that's where you always look at the story of someone's placement. Yeti beat MVD, he beat Leffen, right? He beat Sonics and Kobe all at Genesis, and he got 9th, and it's almost like an injustice because he got 9th, and he didn't beat anybody aside from MVD that was ranked. And so for many people that might seem like unfair or like even an injustice, but it's the fact that he outplaced like almost 2,000 people. And that value alone from his placement jettisons him to 34th, The wins are a part of it, the placements are a part of it, who you're outplacing, of course, is all a part of it. And again, slivers above the rest because we're looking at 57.8 now. And at the end, when all 10 are together, you're going to see it's just decimals for many people. And for the panelists, 40th is where they had him. And, to be fair, many people probably would think that because they probably don't remember that he got 9th at Genesis because he didn't beat anybody that really popped out for them, unless you were a huge fan of Leffen. But many people might discredit that because it's like, oh, Leffen playing Ultimate, like, He's the wave of the melee heads who always play the Smash at the beginning. Like Armada played Diddy at the beginning of Smash Wii U. Like it didn't count for much if you beat Armada, but it was still Armada, right? Yeah. So that's always something to keep in mind. And then his losses, of course, from ESAM all the way down to Shoyo James, aka Rivers now. Very respectable, very good. I mean, his bracket was ending where it should have, quote unquote.
Yeah. I completely agree. And to answer the question in chat, his Frostbite being close to an A tier means a worse placement for a poor performance, like it hurts more. No, it actually helps more. If it was a bad placement at a big event, that hurts more. bad placements at small events hurt less. Am I correct in that?
Can you repeat that one more time so I know what I'm saying yes to?
Okay, yeah. So he's asking because Frostbite is close to an A tier in terms of status. That is a poor performance there worse or better than at, say, Genesis. And a poor performance there is better than if a poor performance at Genesis, because poor performance is weighted heavier at the higher rated tournaments.
Correct? Yeah. It's hard to like almost say like it's good to lose at this event or this is the better event to do worse at. But the best analogies I can think of, especially as like a teacher, is like these S tiers, they're unit tests. Genesis just happens to be the biggest unit, but like, maybe Frostbite was one of the shorter units that you could knock out in a shorter amount of time, but they're both unit tests. So you can't absolutely afford to miss them because your grade will tank. And if it was of the unit tests to do poorly on, so much that you do well on the others, your grade can sustain that sort of blow. And that's what we see with Yeti, because again, that 9th at Genesis, he also did work at Combo Breaker where he got 2nd. Full Bloom 5, a C tier, he got 5th. Midwest Arena, same thing, 5th. The top 32 at Smash and Splash is also huge. 9th at the biggest major in the entire season, and top 32 at the other, of course, meaning that he went into Smash and Splash, top 32, and essentially lost immediately. His losses at Smash and Splash went to, let's see, where are they? Wishes and Nakat. So it's like Wishes is doing really well, Nakat's doing really well. He didn't just bust her out to nobodies. And so with all that in mind, you start to sort of piece together like, oh, this algorithm is way more complex than just like a placement and a head-to-head. Because again, these head-to-heads, it's hard because a 3-8 looks so it looks so black and white. It looks so absolute. But two of those, of the 3 wins that he got, obviously one going to Great Gonzalez, 2 of them were from MBD. And where they happened with MBD, one was at Genesis, and the other one was at COS 2019. That's a C tier, that's an S tier. So like, it's not exactly 2 sets on MBD. He got like one real big ticket item on MBD, and then the other one was like some nice change. Yeah. So it's like, again, like trying to visualize all that and trying to like explain it. It's kind of like the constant, it's a constant thing that we're trying to do. But with this information in mind, I mean, Yeti's dangerous. Like Yeti's a threat. In bracket, like he just, again, can pop off at any moment. And I think he would be one of the people to upset the Japanese at Evo, even though they have experience with Mega Man, because again, Mega Man's not necessarily a meta character in the States. There's a lot of specialists that play him, like him and Scat. They have seen it from Kameme at least. They've seen that it's not their first rodeo with Mega Man, but you know, if they're not used to Yeti's Mega Man or even his Snake, like they can get blown up.
I would say Mega Man is a different beast in Ultimate by a good margin. You know, what moves are good is different. Like there's a couple mainstays like the Saw and the side B being, you know, very, very good still. But, you know, for the most part, I think the matchup playing that is so much different with Leaf Shield and everything now that it's hard. Experience carries over for like Lucina and a couple of those characters from Smash 4 to Ultimate, but Mega Man is definitely one of those characters where you had to grind the matchup to learn it at all, and then that more or less was useless going into Ultimate. So, you know, it's definitely hard, I think, adjusting to that character.
Yeah, and you know, again, like looking back at his play card, you know, we want to talk about like, okay, well, like the patch, LOL, Leaf Shield, nerfed Yeti. Smash and Splash was the last S tier, and even though he took a dip at Frostbite, clearly he started strong. By the time it was Smash Splash, I mean, he continued that, and maybe I'm muddying the timeline, but even then, with that patch or not, he still continued with Mega Man to do well. Despite people now having him on his radar. So for Yeti, 34th, incredible work. Those wins on MBD definitely really cashed out very well for him. And Great Gonzalez, again, another incredible player. So shout outs to Yeti, shout outs to Down B, and shout outs to Josh. That'll do it for 34. Now 33rd, very, very infamous player. Alan giving background to people who might not know him, which I don't think is possible at this point. Captain Zacharuni. Captain Zach.
I think you skipped Ryuga.
Oh, jokes.
Yeah.
No. Oh, yeah, I did. I did skip
Ryuga, a Michigan native. That is my state. That's where I practice medicine in as well. He is, correct me if I'm mistaken, an Ike loyalist. He played Ike when Ike was bad in Smash 4. And now he's playing Ike when Ike is
pretty
better.
Good. Yeah.
Better. I hesitate to make any tier list predictions as to where Ike is because no one plays him much outside of Ryuga right now and Morris here and there. But he stuck to him, and he's really put in some amazing placements. He did. You're right. You guys are right. He did end up going to Corrin, over time.
Eventually,
on Team Neon Black, he's the pride of Michigan in many ways. It's odd. I have this perception that he wasn't able to travel much, but looking at the placements, I was like, oh man, he was there. And it's unfortunate he doesn't get a lot of attention now that he's 33rd in the PGR. One of the many effects the PGR has on a player is their perception in the public. So you're going to see people that were on the PGR going to get a lot more stream spots. So, he's going to have more attention on him. He's going to have more spotlight on him. People are going to see him more. Will he make it out? Will he show that his placement, makes sense and be able to carry that even farther? I mean, what do you think about him as a player?
Well, he only went to majors. He had no time to waste anywhere else. He didn't do a single C tier or a single B tier. And of course, the Midwest is, pretty stacked with events all the time. So he didn't even take a chance to go anywhere else. He did, place 33rd numerous time at those majors, but then the other story comes with the wins. Captain L, 2 wins, Goblin, MBD, Salem, an impressive win considering the fact that Salem again, Raw legend, huge force in Smash 4, of course. And Ryuga still managed to get a set with him and lose one consequently. His set losses though, equally impressive. To be at 33rd, right outside top 32, which is when all the magic really starts, when the stream really starts getting crazy, when the commentary blocks start getting more explosive, that was all put an end by the likes of DeBuzz, MKLeo, Shootone, and Tweak, which on any day, any player could face them and just come out crying because they're going to beat them, they're going to end their bracket run, and that was Ryuga's fate in a lot of cases. Not the crying part, but Tweak, Shootone, Frostbite, that's insane. Tweak, Shootone were his losses, but that was his placement. DeBuzz at Momocon, DeBuzz at Smash and Splash, and then MKLeo and Goblin at CEO. Goblin was able to get the run back because there was a really, really crazy set that they played earlier in the year. But for this, 5-7, that's very, very good. Very impressive. Again, under half, but you're looking at someone who, in a situation in a vacuum with the other 50 players, he had a shot almost as a coin flip. And Coney talked about this for the 41 through 50, but to have a win rate of almost 42%, I mean, that would break many casinos, that's insanely good in a game that so many people might accuse of being, inconsistent or RNG sometimes, right? And I think we see less of that now in Smash Ultimate, which seems to be the more consistent game comparatively to Smash 4. Ryuga's has those odds in his favor. So looks great, looks awesome, severely underrated. I mean, they're putting him right at 50th.
So I don't recall the rest of the list, to be honest with you. I think that this is probably going to be the highest negative X factor you're going to see for a bit.
There were a couple in Tri-State that were in the 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So really underrated. Again, people ask in the chat, what is X Factor? We have a panel of people that rate players, and then the X Factor is the difference between the panels list and the actual PGR. So -17 means the panel did not think very highly of Ryuga. You look at exactly what you're saying. You look at these set counts. You look at the wins he has. You look at the placings he has. It's hard to argue that he didn't earn that 33rd place. He truly did. But again, right when I said I was surprised seeing his list of tournaments that he went to, because I didn't remember him being there. He's never really made that huge splash to make it onto the public consciousness in general. So that is what, in my opinion, held back his panel rating and made his X factor so low. Not because he doesn't deserve it, but because you just don't think of Ryuga until you meet him in bracket.
Yeah,
and when you meet him in bracket, you're like, oh crap! I have to fight Ryuga. I might lose this. Like, he's really good.
Yeah, and definitely, like, Ike as a character, especially in this iteration, like, I think people pop off for Ike. I think that maybe that was sullied a little bit by the beginning of this game, because many people were kind of picking him up / Leo was showing how he could just do whatever he wanted with him. So that also kind of falls a little bit. But anytime you're a heavy or heavy-esque character, which Ike tends to be, like a hard-hitting character, like, people get hyped for that. But I know he has a very strong Twitter presence. I know that he can definitely stir a conversation if he'd like to. So for this season, obviously going into the next, like, now he will have an audience whenever he wants it. And I think justifiably so, because not only can he really, thread what he'd like to online, but with these brackets and these wins, he's doing much of the same. So I wouldn't be surprised if he also could upset somebody from Japan or somebody coming from the international scene to the States for the first time, because he is one of our, or at least the Midwest's, like, he was like almost like the secret weapon,
Mm-hmm.
So big ups to him.
And Stuart is bringing up a good point. There were some circumstances at Frostbite with his win over MVD. I do remember talking to Jesse right after it happened. It was
that's
rough.
A graphical error. Yeah,
it was rough. Well, he did beat MVD technically, but there was issues, and MVD ended up not playing it out because of the circumstances where they're in a side stream, no audio, lots of noise, cheering because it was during. Anyways, but I don't want that to sully his placing or his win. Even MVD gave him that win. He said, good job, it's yours, man. If you want to take it, so there was a little bit of a fight there. But don't let that deter or detract from what Ryuga has done. I just want to at least put that out there.
Yeah, there was that DQ experience. Talking about production again, like in the algorithm, like I see here, like the Ryuga MVD Frostbite set's part of the DQ list we have all the time. Players register for events and they don't go, right? And they're added to the DQ list in the algorithm because they're in the bracket, but they're DQ'd. Obviously, Mr. R doesn't lose round 1 to Timmy, the Link player from Florida. So that was part of the list. I think that just in this production, it was featured because like the bracket was referenced. And so apologies for that, but it's not listed in the blurbs accordingly. And then, of course, the win rate would go down from 5-7 to 4-7. But yeah, I mean, Ryuga takes it for the Midwest, 33rd. Him and Yeti living it up this weekend, along with Tri-State having now additional representatives on the PGR. It'll mean big time for their B and C tiers to come because they'll be able to get them on the map.
And I just want to also give his reaction, which I don't have, but I have, I guess, his girlfriend's reaction.
Oh, yeah.
That she always believed in the love of her life. Literally, the definition of you can do anything you set your mind to, and that she loves him. So it was very, very cute, very touching, and shows that.
Gotta love the support.
Yeah, it shows that it means a lot to him. He didn't say anything from his own perspective, but still, you can tell that. That made him pretty happy.
I think he owes people a lot of money because he said, if you can guess my rank, I'll give you $20. And a lot of people actually said like in the 30 range, and a couple of people said 33rd. So yeah, I mean, big ups to him. Shout outs to his partner. That support's always invaluable. I mean, having someone that can really center you, ground you is awesome. So 33rd for MVD, or no, not MVD, sorry, Ryuga, and I just read his name. And then 32nd, who I prematurely introduced, Captain Zach, and with Bayo, and a mix of Peach. And gosh, the story of Bayo right now is an interesting one, because what a fall from grace. I think he is, quite literally, as it was listed in the article, like the best Bayonetta main in the world. And Ultimate, No shocker there. The only other player who can conceivably outplace him with Bayo, who really just ran the Bayo meta game too, in the previous iteration, is Salem, and he hasn't really played Bayo. So Zach is leading the charge. A bunch of attendance here. Signed with Polar Ace, which, you know, could be one of the chief reasons. Also just like, again, wanting to get your name out there, competing as much as you can. String of 33rds and the top 16 at Frostbite, very, very valuable. And a 9th at Genesis, which started the whole thing.
Honestly, hats off to Zach. He is probably the only player that's really stuck with it when his character was destroyed, decimated. No. Awful. And everyone thought in the beginning he's to Peach because he was originally Peach main before Bayonetta came out. And a good Peach, a very good Peach main. At that, and obviously Peach is a top tier character, one of the top in the game. But no, he stuck to Bayonetta. He has a secondary Peach, but he's pretty much a Bayonetta main. Honestly speaking, I cannot tell you how he does it. I don't think anyone really can tell you how he does it, because that's taking a character that bad and doing things that good, incredible, you know. And this really is like an in your face, in my opinion, to a lot of people that said he was being carried by Bayonetta. No, Captain Zach was and is a solid player, and now he is the one doing the carrying.
Yeah.
So will he stick to Bayonetta? Unclear. Bayonetta got a couple of buffs just to make things more consistent, but I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm not him. But I know you have been a big fan of Captain Zach from the beginning, in terms of playstyle and his flair and personality, with its dancing and, his onstage presence.
Yeah.
How do you feel about him at 32?
I mean, at 32nd, it's definitely low for Zach. I know that he posted his reaction, and he wasn't disappointed, but he was not satisfied, which is like a great distinction to make. I know when I ran into him at Pound, where he got 33rd, I asked him like how he was, like how are things seeming, and he just really said he's trying to learn. He's just trying to learn. I think that Genesis was like a huge boost of confidence and a big tone setter. But then I think Frostbite kind of like maybe brought some doubt to him. I think like Twitter and Reddit and just basically the community at large like wanted to see Bayonetta out of the picture. And that would, by association, include a lot of Zach, because like his entire brand, like most of it is based on and around Bayonetta, and bringing her to her limits. So he just said he was trying to learn, and he was just trying to wait and see, like, how can I make the best of the situation? And he did, albeit like lower than he was historically. In previous iteration, he made top 10, top 15, top 20. Now at 32nd, I think like we're going to see either that commitment to Peach, which a lot of players like Samsora chiefly, and of course Mudace, are showing us the huge power that resides in her. And, like some people in the chat have mentioned, it is more of a Peach nowadays. But he definitely exploded with Bayonetta, with a lot of results in the early part of Ultimate, and even towards the end, ending respectably at 33rd at CEO, no less. But still, I think for Zach, like, this is just a start, and I think it'll likely be his floor. Like, I don't think he'll drop below this 32nd, like going to the 40s or the, even like unranked. But I think now it's like real. Like, okay, like I set this path before me, I got to commit to it, and I have something to like maintain now. I have something to protect, because for so many people, I think until the PGR comes out or came out this time around, since it wasn't the case in Smash 4, the arguablies and the supposed top 10, top 5, how they're always referencing commentary, it's done. It's now settled, right? We move into the next tournament now with rankings, now with storylines, and now Zach has something to really like protect and fight over. And the panel like put him at 31st, so pretty much by and large in line with what people were thinking. Dark Wizzy, Nairo, Prodigy, Salem, Wishes. Comparatively light Mudace, Myron, Sky, and Tweak. I mean, he was putting in the work with a character many thought was just like hung out to dry.
Yeah, and is all of his wins there, very solid wins. Dark Wizzy, Prodigy, Nairo, obviously a big one there, and Salem and Wishes. His losses all fair, all pretty reasonable losses. I feel. Myron, a big one, yeah. Light, big, Tweak, kind of makes sense. But 47% in the set count, 8 and 9. Excellent, and his X factor of +1. So, people know he's good and know he deserves, right around that level. It's nice to see that someone that is as good as Zach is able to put it in and able to do that. His reaction, by the way, to his placing was, as you're saying, I'm on the PGR. Definitely not the placing I wanted, but this is the motivation to continue to get better. Let's dance, boys. So, he plays up into that brand of dancing, of Bayonetta, of that being who he is. And at the same time, he's getting motivated by this low placing. I know it matters a lot to him, being a good player, being a top player. He's very young, 17, I want to say.
Yeah, approaching 18. Started, real young, like, again, reminding me of the MK Leos, reminding me of like Prodigy, obviously Prodigy, like they're all cut from the same cloth. But what's always crazy about Zach is in the early onset of his rise in Smash 4, it was not subtle, and it was not quote unquote staying in his lane. He very much so provoked many people in the community and had many people with their feathers ruffled over his playstyle. And he'd clap somebody, he'd dance on them. He'd lose to somebody, sort of dance on them. He'd taunt mid-game. Like, I think him and Mistake really, not pioneered, because it's always been a thing, and we don't even have the ability to take snapshots and save it to the memory card like you see in a lot of GR Smash compilations, like they had done in Brawl and in PM. But for Zach, I think like that sort of like, not psychological warfare, but an extra thing that like gave him a perceivable edge with people. Like, people always felt a certain way about losing to him. People always felt a certain way about playing against him, just like they did about playing against Bayonetta. So I think he'll continue to rise, especially considering the fact that, there might be more of a Peach focus, and he definitely has proved that he has a technical mastering ability. The way he like handled Bayo, because yes, Bayo had like the bread and butter, the like all the different kicks that she had, and like the jumps and all these things. He and Mistake more so, but both of them were always making, and obviously Salem, like the weirdest things work out, and arguably the most unfair things work out. So behind the wheel with Peach, I expect more of the same, and especially being in cahoots with like Samsora and that bunch as well. Mutace too, like that Peach, it could be like the Bayo Discord or the Bayo Collective now becoming the Peach Collective. So it'll be dangerous, and it'll be something to see as it continues.
He makes that transition fully. I believe in his abilities to take Peach up high. He will be amazing, and you're right, because he has access to these top players so closely. He's from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's not really a huge scene for Smash, so it's very valuable, the fact that he's not necessarily in a hotbed of top players, but he still has access to the top players to help him improve and get better. So he has the recipe for success, and time will tell. Yeah,
I mean, I think, again, one of the players that has personality before playstyle mixed in before personality, like, he can balance both, and he does it well, and I think that's like the edge that'll also make him attractive to sponsors and attractive to teams, because again, as like many people have showed, like being just good at the game isn't everything. So hopefully success continues for Zach. He proved it, so much in the previous game. He already has a nice start here. Like he said, not the place he wanted, but he knows he can do better. So 32nd goes to him. And then finally, reaching the final placement here, the person who was wondering when the release was, DMing me when the release would be, asking what the release would be like, whether or not be video, whether or not be article. Dark Wizzy, incredible story. If you don't know him, never ranked in Smash 4 until the very end, when he made the PGR top 100. That, of course, taking the entire span of like Apex 2015 to like the very, very end. He just, yeah, like he was always like kind of on the outside, and he was able to hang with like a lot of top players and prove himself a lot, but like a little too late. For him making it now, it set the fire. It set the fire, because I mean, you could read his reaction, but he's really excited, very earned. A lot of people have seen that grind, and he reminds me a lot of Cosmos in the sense of like zero to hero. You know, like he was like someone going to locals, like maybe losing more often than he should or whatever, and it took him a long time maybe to get to this level, but he's now at that level. I mean, he was winning doubles with Salem everywhere. In Ultimate, like he won it at Genesis, I believe. He's never placed below like top 3, at least top 4. He's done it all, and he's been grinding to get there. So congrats to him at 31st. Definitely just a start, nowhere near the peak. And it's
I would say in terms of social media buzz alone, he's probably the player people are most happy about. Getting up there. He is pardon the metaphor here, like sort of the ugly duckling. During Smash 4, where like he all of a sudden became a swan now that Ultimate's released. A player that everyone knew, everyone liked him, but he never quite could break through that barrier, and he super jumped through it now. He is the best Mario main in the world, which people have devised based on who most likely is left over, in the PGR. And that means something. That means a lot. And I know when I watch a set with Dark Wizzy, I always enjoy it. It's always incredible. He's an insane player, so good. And he, has been stepping it up so much. And not just in terms of gameplay and placings, but also content. He's grinding it out, and he's getting that recognition that honestly he does deserve. And this, to me, makes me happy when a player who puts that grind in makes it. It sucks to see a player that puts the grind in and doesn't make it. Like, you feel so bad for them, and I'm not going to name any names. You want the best for them. Like, you feel for them. Dark Wizzy has been that player that a lot of people, including myself, sort of felt for. You want to see him do good. And the fact that he's there now, the fact that he's gotten to that point, it's just so exciting, and so many people are proud of him. His X factor of +1, people rated him at 30 rather than 31. Everyone knows he's there now.
Yeah,
one of the top players in the world. And
I know for sure, and this is a little bit of it's like it happens with the rankings all the time when people reject their ranking. It mostly has to do with like the cognitive dissonance of like, I know I'm good, but this number isn't me. When he was rated on the PGR top 100, it was at the time where he was really popping off at the very end, basically the epilogue for Smash 4. He was popping off, and he didn't get rated in PGRU 5. He just missed it. And he got rated in top 100 because, it's expanded to top 100. And then obviously all the work that he had done over the 3.5 years was finally validated, but it was validated in a way that wasn't necessarily commensurable to his skill at the moment it was released, since it was an all-time. I mean, it took in the sets where he wasn't necessarily popping off as Dark Wizzy like we know him now. And so I remember he's like, no, that's not my ranking. That's not me. And, a lot of people even just being included in that conversation, being featured in top 100 would be like, excited or not necessarily thankful, but just like relieved or elated. And he did not let that deter him, and he didn't even let it define him. I didn't even think it was in his bio. A lot of people put it in their bio. I know that some people even still have their V4, V5 placements in their bio. Wizzy never did that. He never accepted it. And now if you go ahead and read his reaction, like he's excited. It's like a storyline meeting full circle, but now it's just the beginning for his entirety, his whole career. This is like now really the start.
Yeah. If he grinded, through Smash 4, and finally made it at the very, very end, like you said, the epilogue of Smash 4. If this is his starting point at 31, with this work ethic, with how much he's going to grind, where is he going to go? What is his ceiling? I don't think anyone knows.
It's rough though too, because with Mario, he's a midweight. He has a tough time with swords. Classically, swords are very popular. Not so much popular as they were in Smash 4. Obviously, Cloud kind of retired. Marth kind of retired, but we still have Lucina. We still have some threats. I mean, we have Goblin showing up with Roy. But yeah, the meme that Mario's bottom 5, Mario's bottom 20, Mario's bottom whatever. It was one of those things where it wasn't a meme for many people. It was like, no one was ever threatened by a Mario in bracket. No one ever shuddered at, hey, everybody, look at my Evo pool. Who's a good Mario in here? Like, the characters that did that were like the Ryus, obviously the Bayos, the Clouds, like a lot of the DLC that had DLC hurt boxes. Mario, I'm not going to sit here and say he's honest or dishonest, but he does not have the equivalent of like DLC hurt boxes in the strictest sense. He does have some up air chains, and we've seen him and Prodigy do a lot of down air chains towards the top where they almost look like Zero Suit Samus. But for the most part, like, Mario's like a very contained character. Like, it's Mario,
Yeah.
So
there is certainly an argument.
Yeah.
Is he being held back by Mario?
Exactly.
And even if you don't necessarily feel like he's held back by Mario, is a solo. Now, in this game, there's so many characters, exactly as you're alluding to. Mario can struggle against some sword characters, which are many top tiers, or sword characters are high tiers. What matters is, does Dark Wizzy being held back by being a Mario main, by being a solo Mario main? Like, he doesn't have a secondary. A lot of people have secondaries for those bad matchups, but I've seen him, like, in his tweets with MVD, tweet out that, like, he's got a Snake, like, answers and stuff, and Mario's has a hard matchup against Snake, as far as I understand. And instead of just switching to a secondary, he's grinding it out. Does that mean Dark Wizzy is taking Mario to the next level? Is he the one doing it right, while everyone else that gets a secondary for bad matchups is doing it wrong? Or is everyone else getting secondaries the ones doing it right? Who knows? Time will tell, and that is the big question, in my opinion, of where will he go? How will Mario fare in the metagame?
Well, the thing too is with Dark Wizzy, he, as his brand, he has a Mario Twitter, a Mario Tech Twitter. Like, everything he does is Mario. Everything he does is like for the character, for the meta. And again, like, if at a perfect level Mario were to go against, let's say another character, like a popular meta character right now, like Wolf or Palutena, in a perfect task situation, right? Or maybe not task situation, that's more mechanical, but more like players of equal skill, right? In 100 matches, how many times would Mario come up? If that instead were dedicated to Wolf or Pichu, these characters that like are undoubtedly part of like the topper end of the Smash Ultimate tier list, where would he be? Because, like, again, no one's doing it with Mario except him and Prodigy. Everyone that played him in Smash 4 largely dropped him, doesn't even play him as a secondary. Anti maybe has a Twitch clip every now and then routinely, but by and large, like, Dark Wizzy is Mario. And
I will say, though, as a team owner, change your Twitter avatar to your face. I get it's a brand thing, but just my advice.
Yeah, it's admirable, because that's also just like a very cool way. Like, I've been in situations before, especially when I make these top 8 graphics or top 16 graphics for the PG Stats Twitter account. Sometimes when I'm looking for a character render, and I go to type Peach, I type Samsora, and obviously that doesn't net anything because Samsora is not a character. Peach is, but similar for Dark Wizzy. When you think of Mario anytime now in Ultimate, it is Dark Wizzy. And then maybe people might bring Prodigy, of course, since he's so novel and incredibly talented at such a young age. But still, like that's his brand. So,
and I will say one final thing to cap off the Dark Wizzy section. He's in the chat actually right now, and he's straight up saying that Mario does everything for him. Mario doesn't hold me back. That is the mentality that a solo main should have. A healthy mentality, and it really goes to show you the difference between people that stick with their characters and that don't. That said, I've had Isam on my team for 4 years, and you know he's slightly advocates for Pikachu at all times. So I know how
that's dedication.
That dedication. I know how important that dedication and that belief in your character is, and that may be why he is the best Mario in the world, is because he believes that.
Yeah, it could be argued like he is carrying Mario, of course, and saying Mario does everything for him is, of course, awesome. But I mean, that exactitude's important because there's definitely people right now. I mean, Mr. R, Abadango, even Nairo, like who have switched characters mid-set, and that's always that and they lose, right? They potentially lose, and it's always the question: did I lose because of the switch? Did I lose because I didn't understand how to counter pick in this situation? But for Wizzy, it's like, I'm always going to be Mario. Like, I'm losing because of me, not because of the choice I made necessarily. That's what solo mains benefit from, but then solo mains obviously are at a disadvantage because they only ever have one character. So as you look at it here, this is where the true story comes out. Between 40th and 31st, only went up about 4.5 points, 55 to 59.4, starting with 50th at Captain L being 50 points. We haven't even gotten 10 points up, and we've breezed through 10 people. That shows you how stacked it is at the top, and also what little separates all these people. Abadango to Goblin, 0.1. Goblin to Mr. E, 0.3, and the rest you see there. From Dark Wizzy all the way down to Abadango, congrats to them for making up the 31 through 40. Before we take Q&A, Alan, is there anything that this image elicits from you?
Wow. The minor differences. 0.4 between Mr. R and Leon and Yeti. 0.2 between Yeti and Ryuga. Like, single wins at, a decent-sized tournament could have made that big difference for them for the number of where they're placed. And that also goes to show you the score goes up to 100. That's the max. The difference between the players in 31 to 40 and the players in 21 to 30, which will be revealed on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and seeing that number as it rises just gives you an idea of how hard it is to rank where they are, and the skill differences between them, and really like how close this landscape is. You can't use a PGR as seeding. You can't. Look at this. How could you use this as seeding? They're so closely matched.
And this is also like not where they're currently at this moment. It's how they did this last season. And that's another debate that constantly comes up because, of course, Leon just got like arguably top 3 wins, top 5 wins, top 10 wins in a single tournament. And is he 35th because of that, or was being 35th what caused him that? No, but this is Leon's season from Genesis till now. Leon's season from, Defend the North and everything that's happened in the past 2 weeks till, the end of the year, December, before we get to Genesis. I mean, it'll be insane. So take that as you will. The other thing I want to point out before we go into Q&A is look at the variety. Hilariously enough, we have more Marios on here than any other character. I'm still not sure what to call or what to make of the fact that Ultimate, I know people keep saying like nobody knows who to call the best character, and then certain people are winning with certain characters over and over more than others. But by and large, we are not seeing the same story that played out when Smash 4 began, which was like a lot of Diddy, like a lot of Sheik, there were situations where Diddy was just like the preferable Ditto, and obviously we're not seeing anything close to Brawl's Meta Knight in terms of representation. But an Inkling, a Roy, a Lucina, so that's 2 swords and a new character. So big ups to Abadango for putting them on the map. Obviously Cosmos following through as well. Chrom with Mr. R, a swordy, Leon with a heavy, and Bowser no less, Yeti with Mega Man, who's seen PGRs before, no surprise. Ryuga with Ike, Rio's done it before, but still very nice to see again. And then we do, of course, have Bayonetta, which for many people's PTSD, but we don't see. This is the first Bayonetta so far. And
this
likely
is
the only
the
one.
character balance.
Yeah.
Every flavor that people want to hate on, like Joker right now, Inkling when the game first came out,
oh my god, I forgot about Inkling being the best character.
Oh yeah, everyone's like Inkling's the best. Hell, I think Zero now rates Pikachu as the best character in the game, which
of course,
for some odd reason Sam disagreed with, but because he thinks Snake is the best character. Don't even get me started on that. It's just there is no clear number one.
Mm-hmm.
The number one, whoever ends up number one, is the player, not the character. And that's one big thing that people are going to be realizing more and more in this stage of Ultimate is that the players are the true important story here, rather than the characters, rather than the mains, rather than anything. And that's going to hold true probably for the rest of the PGR, and I'm curious to see how it's going to hold true for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Will we have a couple characters really breaking out? Is Joker really that broken, or is it just the people that use him?
Yeah, I mean, it is such a young meta, and I think people want to continue the momentum we had in Smash 4, or what little we had remaining, and to just applying the same ideals, but it's a different game. And like I told one of the outlets that interviewed me the other week, like, new game, new rules, new champions, new losers. And like, not to make Abadango or Mr. R the butt of any sort of joke, but like, they were the top of the top of the top in Smash 4. And this isn't to say that they're doomed to be mid-range or low-range players, but it just goes to show, like, it's a new game. I mean, Fatality is another famous case. Second at Civil War, the most stacked tournament of all time, bracket luck or not, like, still an insane feat to achieve. He was lower as well. He was in the 40s, and he's made top 20 before. He's made top 25. So, I mean, it is player-based. It's not just, like, character-based, and we're going to see more of that. But jumping into Q&A now, couple of ones that I wanted to hit, Alan, before we go, since
let's try to shotgun these. It's been 2 hours. I apologize. We have a lot to say.
There's two specifically I want to go into.
Okay,
and
but
I think
I've pushed off a meeting. I'm pushing off another meeting right now, so I only have so much longer.
I missed dinner. It's fine. But I want to do these two questions, and then we'll sign off. Bernard's Loop asks, what do you think of the claims of Japan bias in the X Factor panel? Interesting. We saw a lot of the Japanese get double-digit, like Neotono, double-digit X Factors. Historically, Alan, has it seemed like Japan gets its justice, gets its day in court when it comes to the PGR? Because it seems like Westerners either are coney and don't pay attention to any Umaburas, any Sumabatos, anything, or they're in love with the Japanese and just think they're the greatest thing to happen to Smash.
Frankly, this was something that has been refined over the years of the PGR. Where there was a lot of controversy, rate them, and then there was another PGR version where people were like, "There is too much Japan bias, like so biased for Japan," and it's so funny to see how the rhetoric changes. Now people are saying you're so biased against Japan, whereas like literally 3 iterations ago, they were saying we're too biased for Japan. And it's hilarious because it's all just it changes the algorithm. I think that it makes sense. I think where they placed makes sense, but I think that the Japan is the land of the hidden boss. I would not be surprised to see any of those players make an insane run at an S tier tournament and like Kameme come out of nowhere and get second at Evo. Not exactly nowhere, but you know what I mean. Like, he was not on the radar of Westerners that weren't paying attention to Japan. It's so hard to rate them because you see someone like Neotono didn't drop a game in A tier. Remember
game, not Japan. Set a game,
not a game. Okay, and people are like, he's been robbed. But if you look at things, it makes sense for why he is where he is there, and that also makes sense for why his X Factor is so damn high. Plus 20, I think it was. It's insane, and he is an incredible player. His results didn't speak to that yet. And that's the thing. And that's what you always have to keep in mind when it comes to the Japanese players. And I think that is a fact, not just a perception. I think it's actually the truth that a Japanese player will come to America and just shit on everyone. You won't see it. And you're like, what the hell, is this player? And you'll get so incredibly hype. But, rating that beforehand, it's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, with all of them playing such different meta characters and just being so talented at their non-meta characters and then coming here and they all know the matchups, they sweep. And the other question to tie into that I actually just saw scroll up too quickly was this iteration of the PGR, we introduced an international bonus. Now, the multiplier itself doesn't affect anybody except tournaments and the wins and placements garnered at them if they happen outside of the continental US, meaning that even Hawaii and Alaska benefit from it. I know that Hawaii has a great thriving scene. That's where I believe GSM was founded, Void's old crew. And I know that's where Poi Pandas and Kauai Con, I think, happens. I know Poi Pandas does for sure. But all of Canada, all of Mexico, the entire continent of Europe get a bonus for their values. And it's a very slight bonus. I don't even believe it affected it to the point where it was even close to putting the scene in balance. This season on the PGR, the United States alone had 60, I said it on the previous show, they had 60% of all available points on this season, meaning that the remaining 40% of all of those points garnered between multiple S tiers, A tiers, or B tiers that were hosted elsewhere were divided by everybody else, by the entire continent of Europe, by everybody in Japan, by everybody in Canada, and by everybody in Mexico. The international multiplier, I think, was successful, at least, in kind of bringing the level playing field of, again, venue space is very limited in Japan. They don't have, the capacity to host a 2,000 person tournament, unless it's an EVO Japan. And even then, I know that faces a lot of restrictions. All of that and more just goes to show that there's, still a lot of work to be done to tie both ends of the globe. But there's always the situation that the majors, by and large, always happen in the States. And that keeps it from necessarily centralizing or focusing in and around other parts of the world. The United States has the CEOs, the EVOs, the Genesises, and that just ruins most people's perceptions of when they try to do the whole X Factor thing, because they don't see Japan come here often. And I'll say it again, 2GG was chiefly responsible for getting, along with Frostbite, with base sets efforts too, with the crew battles and everything else, getting Japan here and getting them exposed and exposing Westerners to them through Japan team compendiums and everything else. And then Florida, I know, and the Wang thing in particular, the Duck Hunt Discord, getting Raito over and over to the States, that sort of stuff's important. And the international multiplier, I think, is a step in the right direction, but further refinements, I think, will get it each and every season to look more and more balanced to what is actually happening. But nevertheless, we're always going to have that situation where the US has the most amount of majors, and you can't necessarily change that. I mean, it'd be great if there was a Genesis in every country every year, but alas, it's only in Oakland.
Yeah. And I will echo Tass's sentiment in the chat that I think that it went over pretty well. I think it makes a lot of sense. The international bonus that was given is the exact number going to be kept. Maybe a little bit of tweaks, but I don't think it was that far off, if it was off at all.
I wouldn't say it was
hard to balance.
I wouldn't say liberally that it was a test, because obviously with everything that's done, there's a non-zero impact, and we've learned that firsthand. So to make international tournaments time and a half, right, that would be out the door, maybe too much. So it started subtle and it's getting tweaked. And on top of it, the international scene didn't have as much they had high quality tournaments with Albion and Uber Japan, but the frequency is still lower, far lower than the US. Like the amount of C tiers that we got, the amount of B tiers even, is still overwhelmingly based in the United States. So as the seasons kind of like start to form, and then now as Japan gets some newly PGR'd players like Sumabatos and Maburas, they have that capacity. Or if people travel abroad and they get invited, like Cosmos and Nairo and even ESAM and MVD have in the past, they can be more highly rated, and then like that can be more evenly distributed. But like again, we always try to serve as a reflection of the scene as opposed to one that tries to fix it or determine how it goes. When the 2GGC was happening and we had a major pretty much every month in SoCal, like we couldn't do anything about that because that's where the people went. You know, that's where also the money was and all the teams were looking. So like every month, everyone shipped their players to a 2GGC saga. So things like that happen, and unfortunately what the scene's going through or what the scene's aspiring to do, we can only capture and then report on, not try to fix or doctor or meta doctor or like play God with. So hopefully that answers that, and I think that'll wrap up these 2 hours.
Actually, let's just shotgun these, okay? Because I wanna stay true to being able to answer these questions, okay?
Okay.
Quick answers. A Supernova 369 says, if we got something as Capcom Pro Tour or Tekken World Tour, do you think the scene will grow even larger? I'll take that one. Yes. I will not give any details, but if Nintendo put a little bit more into it, like the CPT or the TWT does, I think the potential is massive, and I think Smash could be a tier 1 esport someday if it had that. Jason Gu says, at Pan Global, are you able to reveal the largest jump of the whole PGR or no spoilers? No spoilers. And also, I don't know offhand. Z-Twarz 999 says, at Pan Global, to go along with Barnard's question, what are your feelings about the low X factors for Tri-State so far? Do you want to answer that?
Well, I think Tri-State, along with CFL, has somewhat of a reputation when it comes to, you know, being looked at for results. Tri-State is it is probably the strongest region right now, no question, or at least top 2 or top 3. But I think those players were just by and large overlooked and underrated because they weren't some of the other players that were popping off. And also, Frozen and Great Gonzalez were Palutena players. And I think many people discounted, like Coney was saying, many players just sort of, or not players, but panelists might have thought, you know, oh, they're just another Palutena main. Oh, like they're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. Like nothing's happening that I haven't seen before. And because they weren't Nairo, or I mean, yeah, Nairo's like pretty much up there as like the best one. Many people just probably saw that as like a fluke, and so Palutena is like a really popular character to play, pretty simple to pick up, hard to master, very interesting frame data, and so I think that's what most of Tri-State, the bias against them, came from. They happen to have been players that were overlooked and playing a character that many people kind of disliked by and large.
Yeah. I think it does make sense, and I would also say that they have a lot of one-hit wonders. Is I think almost insulting to players because I don't think they are, especially Leon, you know. But they are perceived to have a lot of those because of the reasons that you're stating. I think it's also an element of that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Riley underscore Twitch says, at Pan Global, I got 65th at a C tier in my top 30 PogChamp, deleting that question. At Pan Global, can you tell us the most represented character in the PGR? That is a spoiler. We cannot tell you. We can tell you for this, the last 10 is Mario.
Palutena, Mario.
Yeah. At Pan Global, will there ever been any panelist/human factor added to the actual rankings like how Melee has done it? For instance, running the algorithm and having its results being examined by panelists to refine for solutions like MVD/Riga, Frozen, Win-Win. Okay, so first of all, this is designed to be as empirical and impartial as possible. And that adds a lot of room for biases in the method that you're talking about, where it's refined after the list is made. There was a little bit of talk about taking the panels list, taking the PGR empirical list, and then averaging them out. But as you can see here, there are some wild anomalies, and in a game where a major happens every weekend, Leon's negative 10 X factor. This was done before Defend the North. What do you think his X factor will be now? There's so much subjectivity that goes into a rating by a panel in a game that has so many tournaments like Ultimate. There's many reasons why it works for Melee, and why Melee benefits from a subjective list. There, in my opinion, is many reasons why it would not work in Ultimate or in Smash 4. Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, TAS answers it in the FAQ, like mixing a subjective list with the results produced by the algorithm would defeat the purpose. And it would sully the results and essentially throw things into such a weird orbit that you're getting the worst of both worlds, not the best. And it would be something where, you know, Melee benefits from like a long history and like a different set of established majors and everything else and this, that, and the other. And, you know, there is plenty of critique against ELO and Glyco style and everything else. But, you know, this is something where, again, we're trying to make sense of like the chaos of like a new game in an incongruent tournament setting where Japan's doing best of one and Midwest is for some reason doing Swiss at a major. And so there's like a lot to sift through. And I think we are almost there, / we've done the best we've had so far at discerning the best of the best. And so the X Factor, you know, ironically, almost didn't, you know, behind the scenes, almost didn't make a return because like people always like double listed or like would make the two lists together and try to compare, and we just like felt a way about it, or I felt a way about it. But then we realized like no one's ever held an X Factor and been like, you know, this is what I should be or this is what I shouldn't be. And if anything, it keeps the community in check where it shows potential and validates it, or it highlights the biases against them. Like I can assure you, DeBuzz, by and large, has only ever gotten a negative X Factor or a 0, because for the most part, people just consider him as like a certain, like especially in the early parts of Smash 4 with Rosalina, just like, yes, he's consistent, but he's not consistent in the way I like it. And so they tend to underrate him to like more explosive players like Nairo. I mean, Nairo has an entire fan base that would positively rate him double digits if they could, just because of like his incredible playstyle. Mango as well, you see the same thing. So yeah, it can't be combined. It's also just a scene that has like so little to go off still, and so much in terms of the gaps of knowledge. Melee has hardened stat heads and veterans, like multiple people that create and curate that information, and also that people follow. They would not overlook Japan like some people like Coney freely and publicly do. I mean, I know Coney doesn't.
They don't have to deal with Japan either,
and they don't, aside for Amsa, and that one guy that lays down when he plays,
Rudolph.
But you know, again, like we're an international community. Like, so is Melee. No shade, but like, you know, the amount of like yes, there's Gamo, and yes, there's Smash Factor, which I think has Melee, but I mean, Smash 4 was happening everywhere, and Smash 4 had a lot of different like pockets of players, and the longest time, Europe, like, I don't think Europe sucked or anything explicitly, but Europe didn't benefit from the fact that Mr. R was always beating them, and then Mr. R would come here and do the best out of anybody else that ever came from Europe, you know, and so that affects perceptions and all this other stuff, and even what main you play, like I said earlier with the Buzz, like that affects perception more so than it does in Melee, where things are a lot more set in stone. You know, because who knows, like maybe Leon falls off, maybe Bowser gets figured out, maybe the parry meta that's yet to come like truly puts a stop to him, or like he gets better, you know. But right now, like if you were to just look at Defend the North, where he clapped everybody, like you would rate him highly. You know, the recency bias is way too powerful in Smash.
Yeah. All right, so for the next question, Panda Global, what are your top 5 PGRU Season 2 newcomer predictions? I will give you one of what is already revealed so far, and that is, for me, Prodigy. Suar?
I'd have to say, I don't want to say the same person, but I think like the best newcomer so far that we've revealed, I have a soft spot for Goblin. mostly because he's coming to us from Florida. I'm from CFL, who's like a total. They're a region, we'll just put it that way, and I think that that's powerful for their community to have someone PGR'd, especially someone who is currently their number one and a character that many people just don't think twice about. And in the time he was able to do it, like I think many people that are in the top 20 historically and now have always kind of been there, you know, like they've had this tenure since Brawl almost. And so people come to expect that. But with people breaking the boundary, like Goblin and even Dark Wizzy, it shows like literal bootstrap sort of rugged individualism can like get you PGR'd, you know? And whether or not these people needed that long enough timeline to finally make it to the top, or, you know, they were destined for it, like we'll never know. Like who knows if Smash 4 continued for 10 years, let's pretend. Who would have risen after that, you know? Would it have been all the Bayos, or would it have been whoever? I mean, just look at Melee. Like Melee has so many different ages and so many different stages, and everything that like happened for me, like Goblin being one of the newcomers in such a new and exciting time, I think takes the cake for me.
Cool. Then next question, Kaligi Jr. at Panda Global. How many top 8 placings at A tiers would it take to outweigh an S tier top 8 placing? Again, A tier, S tier relative.
Who was there?
On the A tier, depends on the S tier. Exactly. It depends on who was there. And also A tiers and S tiers and the way the rankings are going to be working are going to be reverted more back to how it was previously, which is your PGR wins, the people that were on the PGR previously that you beat and what the size of the event that you beat them at. So there is absolutely no direct answer to the question you just asked. It's impossible to answer. There's way too many factors that go into that.
Yeah, you could have a S tier tournament that cleared the rating by the amount of general entrants needed to do it. Like last season, it was 1,200 people. You could have had 1,200 randoms at a college event, you know, because colleges and cons like MomoCon do things all the time with no notable players, and you could win that, and that could be undervalued to like potentially a B tier where you outplace Tweak, MKLeo, Nairo, Mars, Cosmos, Light. Like that could be valued more. Like the you quickly find out that first is the only significant and even then, like there's a story to how they got first because there's like upsets and all that, but placements are truly so misleading. Like I said earlier, Yeti got 9th at Genesis 6 and he lost to, I don't even remember who, but it was like insane losses that many people in the top 10 right now also share, but they ended up at 3rd or 4th instead. Yeti had those 2 losses at Genesis 6. And it was just like, what's going on here? Like what's happening? Or maybe not Yeti, it was someone else. Like losing to like the Buzz and like Mars to get 13th. Like how is that dope? You know? Like that's what people lose and get 2nd or 3rd at rather. So truly the answer to your question is that it totally depends on who's there and everything else.
All right. So at Panda Global, is there any way that factored in differently because of the first S tier only months after the game came out, whereas most players weren't fully settled in yet? First of all, that is why we had a preseason. We did not rank the first 2 months, I believe, of the game.
December and January until Frostbite. Or Genesis, I mean.
Yeah, till Genesis. Genesis was the beginning of it. So at least there was a fair amount of time for people to figure things out before the big first true Ultra Major. That said, we did debate and talk about recency bias adding to the PGR. I think we did experiment with that with the PGR 100. Right now, there is no intention of making a recency bias for tournaments. And as that really is unfair in a lot of ways and can invalidate, or not invalidate, but can just, it just doesn't really look good. It doesn't really weight things well.
Yeah, and a lot, you know, we are keeping inconsistent, like, oh, why would you choose Genesis to start it? Well, historically, we've always done, before Genesis, the release of the winter rankings, and then Genesis starts as like the first major for the new PGR, similar to how we're doing right now for EVO. But by and large, we asked top players, we got a lot of data, talking to TOs, talking to everybody. The first 2 months of Smash were not supposed to be this, like, yes, it was competitive, like, not taking away from anybody, but the amount of noise we would have gotten from these players who would have gone to tournaments to only lose to Inkling when they've never played Inkling before, or to lose to the new way day-to-day functions, or to get blown up by a Bowser that never went to a tournament ever again. It would have been very detrimental to everything. And by the same token, which is why we don't rate locals, is applying the competitive pressure that the PGR brings in places that it's unexpected actually has been shown to hurt the events they're supposedly trying to help. Some people might think that, if this tournament's PGR, it's going to be a big deal, this, and that, and the other. But if you're sitting there with like some pretty good wins and you're a top player, you're top 10, you're top 15, why would you risk that at somewhere that has a lot of unknowns? Many PGR players, obviously, they all register for the legacy events because they know that's where the biggest wins are. But some PGR players have gone on public record saying they gave up the opportunity to go to X country or X tournament because, one, it was ranked and they didn't want to like get blown up by anything they didn't expect, and two, because again, like there's too many unknowns. And with locals, if we like the old argument, why do you count locals, this, that, and the other? If locals counted the way that Nairo, the way that Anti even and Tri-State go to locals to show some love for the community, be a part of it. Some of them give pop bonuses, they participate. If there was a consequence that it would affect their ranking, they're not going to go to the locals. Locals are meant to be practice. They're meant to be like where you see a Ryu from Sue, where you see a Captain Falcon from Mars, or if you're on the CEO main stage. It's time for stuff like that. And we did not want the beginning of the like Smash Ultimate esports, conception to just be who can cheese out who the most, because it was like the beginning, right? If everything counts from the beginning, it would have given no people any time to learn. So yeah, I think that's like the long answer, and I think my last long-winded response.
All right. Again, shotgun, suar. I'm very hungry and I want to get out of this tie.
Last two, I've said it.
Okay. Pig Goon says, Epic Global, you talked about having to revert the algorithm to the old way back before the ranked players, you took ranked players into account. Now that you have a quote-unquote temperature, as Suar said, and have a baseline, will the algorithm be just reverted back to the current way at the end of Smash 4, or will you be adding anything from learning about how it's used in Ultimate? Every season, the algorithm has changed. Every season, the landscape has changed, and there's different things and weights applied to it. As to what specifically is different, I have no idea. That's TAS's territory. But I do know that they never have, correct me if I'm mistaken, have used the same algorithm twice in a row. There's always been changes made to it. So it will not go back to the exact same algorithm. There will be adjustments and hopefully improvements.
Yeah, the confidence factor was introduced towards the end of Smash 4. That was just saying, like, if you beat this person, it's expected. If the Buzz walks up to me, he has, like, almost 100% of beating me. But if I beat him, that's where the upset is. That's where the points come. That will return just like it did now. And then, yeah, weighting tournaments by who's there or the entrance. Whoever clears the bar, whichever is the highest score, that'll be the rating.
Mm-hmm. And Zatal Wars, I think I got this time 999, says, so ask guys who had a better run at it with Smash and Splash. This is directly comparing Wizrobe or the Greg Gonzalez. Wizzy had a better placing and better losses, and DeBuzz and Wizzy and Yeti and DeBuzz for Gonzalez. But Gonzalez had more and better wins, sharing Tweak, Scat, Wizzy, whereas Wizzy beat Utopian Ray, while Gonzalez beat Gact, Seth, and Black Twins. With that in mind, who had the better Smash and Splash run by the PGR system? Now, keep in mind that the PGR system in general is not just one tournament. So I don't think is it even possible to identify who got more points from a single tournament. Because,
Wizrobe versus who?
The Great Gonzalez.
So Utopian Ray, Tweak, Lee, and Scat compared to Gonzalez's... compared to Gonzalez's Ice, Scat, Gact, and Tweak, and Black Twins, and Seth. I mean, that seems to almost answer itself. Like, quantity-wise, obviously, Gonz is bringing more to the table, but for people that were questioning Wizzy, why didn't Wizzy make it? Where's Wizzy? Similar to Leffen, I mean, attendance as well as quality of wins, while they were there, they were losing to people left and right. That's like the melee player playing not melee syndrome. While they're insanely good, and Wizrobe and Leffen and Armada and everybody who touched Ultimate could clap this entire chat in a 99 versus 1, they lost to people all the time. Wizrobe at Frostbite lost to someone named Danny Fathom. That's a pun on Danny Phantom. Like, no offense to him, but I mean, he's losing to people that people don't really know. At Collision, or no, he wasn't at Collision. He lost to the Buzz, to MBD. He also lost to Benny and the Jets. It's a band. Yeah. They like, when melee players touch non-melee games, like, they're just trying to figure something out, and who they lose to or win against is almost irrelevant. Just like, irrelevant in their minds.
Wizzy is a 64 player. What are you talking about?
Yeah, oh my god. But like, when Mewtwo King beat Zero at like Gommel, you know, like 3-0, made him look like a random. Like, Mewtwo King was just trying to decide whether or not Cloud Down Air was functional at ledge, you know? Like, that's the crazy part. But yeah, I mean, Wizzy just he lost a lot to people he quote unquote shouldn't have. But a good two-week win. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, again, it's almost impossible. Well, Task can apparently do it in the chat. Stop being amazing, Task. But to compare one run versus another in a single tournament, in a single isolated thing, and eliminate everything else that happened. Yeah, that's basically impossible. You know, in general. So, anyways,
the last one, or we got one more?
Did you have one more?
I think that was it. I'm done. I think we've done it. I think we've done it, chat. Thank you. This is Smashcenter with Suar and SamuraiPanda. You just saw us give our thoughts on the PGRU, the first ever PGR for Smash Ultimate. If you're just tuning in, the rankings are coming out with the 21 through 30 happening on Friday. And if you haven't caught it, it's on YouTube, youtube.com/PandaGlobal, and all the blurbs and all the content that you can want is on Red Bull, who we're in partnership with. And so you'll see everything come out about these players, their regions, their characters, their stats, everything. And of course, our beautiful videographer Cud has shown them in their glory with insanely good editing. If you haven't seen the Prodigy, the Prodigy edit in his opening clip, it is very subtle but very clean. So thanks everybody for joining. We're gonna have another roundtable mini edition on Friday. Next week is when we're planning to really have like more people join in. So if I sent apps out and you responded for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm a horrible person, but scheduling didn't work out, and also it's just more intimate this way. So any words before we sign off, Alan?
Thank you guys for listening. I was a special attendee this time. I don't know if I'll have the schedule to be able to do this again. And I hope we were able to give some insights. I know I'm an older player in terms of Smash, so I have a lot of Brawl knowledge to bring to the table. But thank you guys, honestly, for the support. Thank you guys for supporting PGSAS, for supporting the PGR, obviously PG. Thank you to Red Bull for sponsoring it and helping us make this reality. Thank you to Suar, the director, Tass, the computer behind the man. Thank you to Cud for just being an incredible editor, and all the writers that we have on board. Everyone works really hard to make this possible on a very short timeline to get this out for Evo. And they all deserve nothing but praise, and I don't think they get enough from the community, because everyone would rather argue with them instead of say what a good job they've done so far.
I love the arguments, it's fun. But in any case, thank you, Alan. You've made this possible as well. The platform's great, everyone is lovely, and before you know it, we'll be in season 2, and just season 2, not talking about the past anymore. Evo's coming up next weekend. This weekend, I know we have that Thunder Smash Invitational. News regarding Invitational are out in the FAQ, so yes, they do count, but it's very, very, very reduced to before. You're not going to see an S tier Invitational or an A tier Invitational like Conga managed to nab back in the day. PGR's learning process, PGR's reflection of the community, we do it for you, and we're going to continue improving that. So join us next Friday, same place, different time. We're going to be earlier for the Friday Night Cats, so 5 p.m. Eastern is what we're trying to do to get on. And we'll have great conversation, awesome times, and a 21 through 30 to talk about. So follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, at the PG Stats. You'll find myself there, SamuraiPanda at PG_SamuraiPanda. And yeah, stay tuned to news. Anything you see, if you see a typo, DM me, and I can push status to get it fixed. But for the most part, things are pretty airtight, and I'm proud of what the team's brought, because it's what the scene deserves, and it's been a crazy season. So thanks, Alan. Thanks, everybody. I think that's it. I think we'll go.
Have a good night.
See you then.